Welcome back, SMITE fans, to week number 1 of SMITE Masters Spring here in Season 9 of the SPL and competitive SMITE in general. We are moving in to our second best of 3 of the day, our 4th set of the day, if that's correct. I don't do math on cast, even if it's just 3 plus 1. We've got a great one over the horizon on the back end of a very competitive first best of 3 that we've got here today. My name is Dolson. Rowe is with me. That was right? It's our 4th set of the day, our second best of 3.
Yeah, I think
it's a lot of very small numbers, and that confuses my head. I was on a break for a little while just now, so I need some time to get my feet back.
There was a small number of kills in those last games. It all takes a toll.
Right, the set equal to the amount of kills in the first 20 minutes of all of those games combined. Jokes aside, that is what we expected some of the game length to look like all weekend. We had seen some 25 or so minute games earlier on, but those were some very lengthy competitive games.
Yesterday I was happy to be proven wrong by Wardens especially. right. They made some pretty quick work of their opponents at the time. Not what we're seeing today, and I hope maybe we'll get, let's settle somewhere in the middle. Maybe like 30 minutes I'm good with.
Yeah, 30 minutes, that's a nice middle ground. A nice middle ground. Well, Hex Mambo, they're able to grab a win over Yomi Tanuki, move themselves on, and Tanuki then fall down to our 5th and final set of the day, or our 3rd best of 3, awaiting the winner of this matchup, which will send one of 2 teams home between the Wargs and the Storm. And so, Ro, we've gotten an early look at both of these 2 teams here, only the best of 1 that we got earlier on today. Let's start with the Wargs, though, a team that unfortunately dropped earlier on today in their best of 1. It's Kana, Sarpe, Angry, Preds, and Spudio.
That's correct.
Certainly a very talented roster. Expect them to have the ability to bounce back.
Yeah, look, they're our European seed 1. Same sort of thing we saw yesterday. Our NA seed 1 fell, and they came back and fought back until the end and ended up qualifying for the next day. And I believe Wargs are trying to do the same thing here.
Yeah, the Wargs, too talented of a team to, that's a lot of T's in one sentence, too talented of a team to take a tumble in their first tilt of the tournament. Oh, this is great.
This is great.
And tune out of, I got nothing else. But point stands. I think they are too good of a team. They are too good of a squad. To stumble in a best of 1. I think they have more to show us here in a best of 3 set of SMITE. I want to look towards the jungle here for this roster, Sarpe, and some of what we've seen there recently, because it's been such an interesting meta to look at in general. We wondered if Hunter would be just the role that kind of takes over. I mean, maybe Sarpe in general, but more so around the jungle. What have you seen from junglers so far here?
A lot of Boomba's Hammer, and what we saw out of Johnny, I think, was the right kind of thing. We saw a lot of success on the Harmbats. Didn't really expect to see that coming into the LAN environment. We thought, maybe things that can take care of hunters like the Osiris, which we saw success from as well, and Nemesis might be the way to do it. But yeah, making work on the Harmbats, the Nemesis, but Sarpe playing things like Kali as well, and Osiris himself could do the same thing.
Now, I want to flip the script over to the Xibalba Storm, a team that has been very talented out of North America. Again, expect big things from this squad. The 2nd seed North American team, Uzi, Magic Feet, Joshi, Oceans, and In My Zen. Magic Feet, let's just continue the jungle conversation. Yeah. Because, again, I think follows a similar trend where you've seen Magic Feet on these like warrior facilitator style picks, and the team hasn't looked fantastic, but then you get Magic Feet on the carry style picks, and the team looks great. How important do you think Magic Feet is to this roster?
Essential, really. I mean, he is your rookie, but he's also the core of your team when he's like in the plays that he's making for his team. They're a team that does live and die by their jungler, and I walked past him in the hallway, and he looked, pretty disappointed about the set he just saw. So maybe he's not too happy with the meta that he's walking into. But hey, maybe they want to change things and pull a Wardens type strategy and pull some objectives and get these games going.
Well, here's the good news: is the Storm could make quick work of the Wargs here. You get a quick 2-0 and then maybe a 2-0 in the final set of the day. No matter what, for these 2 teams, whoever wins, you are going to have to play another set of SMITE later. So maybe you pick up the speed a little bit and try to grab yourself a 2-0 to save some of that energy. But I'm excited to watch this team adapt from a best of 1 into a full-on best of 3. Didn't show us too much earlier on here today. The dual lane's very strong for the squad. Oceans support for the squad. In My Zen, of course, than the Hunter. What have you made from what you've seen of Oceans and In My Zen so far?
I mean, especially Zen, I've seen consistency, really. Like, he's been consistently improving over time, just these incremental improvements since he began his career in the SEC. So I think he's getting to the point where he's fighting at these upper levels of play, and he's pushing towards getting himself into the SPL. And opportunities like this, tournaments like this, that's his big chance. He's teaming with Oceans, who was on Titans last year, who won multiple tournaments.
Right.
So a lot of knowledge coming from that, because Oceans was a coach for a two-time playoff winning team. So you can have decent drafting, and out of your support player, good shot calling as well. And then if you have a good consistent ADC that is improving over time, that's even better.
Yeah, melding of the minds, to be sure. And so I think I'm excited to watch how the styles of both of these teams clash together as well. Unfortunately, at the end of this set, one of these two teams is going to go home, bow out of the tournament. Feels too early for both of these squads, given what we've seen from both in the SEC. We'll be into picks and bans for game number 1 shortly. And I think one of the interesting pieces, Ro, if you kind of zoom out on this tournament in general, is watching EU SMITE really clash with North American SMITE. Has it lived up to maybe what you were expecting coming into it? Maybe a high-octane play style with a more calculated play style, or has there kind of been one accepted meta maybe that you've seen develop here this week?
I think everybody's still kind of figuring it out. None of us know what they're doing. We don't know what we're doing, and we just we just see Oceans, looking at his notepad from his coach there as well. So they're trying to figure something out. They're getting some strategies rolling. Maybe they have a good idea going into this event. We saw Ozzy in the interview earlier in the day saying that they had some spicy picks coming. Those picks didn't go great in their first game, but when you have spicy picks, you normally have something else in the back pocket to rely on as well. So hopefully they can fall back on that.
If I am correct in the way that the games have broken down, I believe Ozzy and Leon are pretty good friends with one another. So we could get a clashing of friendships if the Storm are able to grab this win here. And unfortunately, one of the two best friends is going to have to send the other home.
Leon, he did say he wanted that, so we can give him what he wants maybe.
He did want the matchup with Ozzy?
Eventually, yeah.
At some point.
Yeah,
and it happens to be in the knockout round of this tournament. Again, if the Xibalba Storm are able to send the Niflheim Wargs home. We've seen a lot of success from North American teams, at least in day number 1, so it's a great shout for EU, that Hex Mambo, especially given, we hadn't really even talked about this all that much, where with ping issues potentially playing a factor, the fact that Hex Mambo were able to grab a set win just now, qualify themselves on into the next day of this tournament. Of course, we've had some out of North American teams able to make it here in the studio, but I think a great look for Hex Mambo, especially after the up and down phase that they had in the EU SEC, able to qualify themselves forward. The mid lane of this matchup also, I think, pretty intriguing here. Angry on one side for the Niflheim Wargs. In past games, in past metas even, it's been a lot of Thoth, a lot of Tiamat for Angry. Feels like the meta's moved away from those styles of picks a little bit.
A little bit as well, and we're talking about playing from home. That is their one player playing from home as well. But we just saw, Hex Mambo take over that, ping disadvantage and win. Not no problem, but they won in the end, right? So with the rest of his team here, I'm sure he can take some inspiration from Mambo and say, this disadvantage isn't that big of a deal. Maybe I'll get myself on the Baba Yaga like Zeros was, and he saw great success.
Yeah, are we buying Baba Yaga stock? Is that on the rise? It is for Zeros, but should it be for everyone else?
If they're first picking it, it's got to be, right?
Right. Yeah, I suppose. There's some value there, and it's something that Zeros really made work. I like that style of pick. Everyone's building stacking items anyway. Baba just does it a little bit better, I suppose. The Charon's coin has felt very good. Although Zeros did what? He did Charon's, Divine Ruin, Soul Reaver, I think, at some point. Soul Gem a little bit after that. He didn't even do all that much stacking.
Then he updated his starter, and he ended up with like 30% cooldown. He had the flat pen, a little bit of everything, and ended up dropping.
How is Warlock staff the meta? But we're not building it on Bob. That's more of like what, tanky?
I've coached him before, and sometimes he likes to be different. That's the way it is.
It's just that simple.
Yeah,
he
sometimes.
just likes being a little bit different and out of the meta. I do say a lot of Thoth and Tiamat, of course, for Angry. Did see Thoth earlier on in their one game set. Wasn't successful there. Do they return to it? Do the Wargs opt for that again in picks and bans for game number 1? We will find out as P's and B's for game 1 of potentially 3 in this knockout best of 3 starts right now between the Wargs and the Storm. And I think a lot of flexibility for these two teams as well on who you can identify on the opposing team. Who do you want to ban out? I do think Magic Feet draws a little extra ire if you're the Niflheim Wargs here. But the ban presence going more towards hunters.
Yeah, it looks like they're just doing like meta-type bans. They think hunters are strong, they'll ban them away. I mean, both teams here, by the way, have just been watching and waiting for this meta unfold.
Yeah,
so
right.
they've had a lot of time to think about this stuff. So hopefully these bans are just banged out real quick and they can pick the comps they want.
On one side, hunter-centric bans for the Wargs. On the flip side, for the Storm, we are taking away auto-attack-centric junglers. Admittedly, a bit backwards from what I was expecting to see, mainly just because of Magic Feet and those styles of picks, the carry-style junglers looking really good, but Sarpe has played Kali in the last set of the year over there in the EU SEC, and then, of course, Thanatos earlier on here today. Kleena does make some sense. Kleena is very strong. That also is a very good pick for Magic Feet if left open, something that is not often left open for the Storm jungler. And so are you agreeable with the first 3 bans here for the Wargs?
Yeah, I mean, a little confused by the Uller, I think, but the
Yeah.
Chernobog, yes, the cleaner is always a good ban. Jingwei on the other side, always a good ban in this current meta, at least. Now they have the first picks available, and Umoja can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, Umoja seems to be a great catch-all pick, especially first overall, getting your support onto something comfortable, not revealing way too much about the way your composition wants to operate. And so the Wargs, namely Preds, barring some miraculous role swapping going on, we'll be happy with the first pick of the draft so far here for the Warg Storm. Still a lot of viability left open here for picks 1 and 2. Whether you want to go towards your solo lane, we've seen some flexibility as well, Ro, with picking Baron, but it could be support, could be solo. I don't even know if we've seen Baron mid with all of the Baron that we've been seeing. Zhang Kui as well has been very important. It still feels like there's a lot left open.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the ball's in their court. They have to have expected this Umoja. It's a pretty basic pick. Every top support in the game right now is playing that pick. It's a bread and butter for most. You have to practice a lot to be good at it because it's been good since its release, really.
There you go. All right, we wondered if we would see Baba Yaga start to trickle into a few more of our games here this weekend. And for the Storm, the answer is yes. So Joshi will get the Baba Yaga, and then a Baron as well on the back end of it. So double magic dealers early on likely means Baron over into the solo lane.
Right.
Are you dictating a lot as far as the pace of your composition goes when you pick a Baba Yaga this early?
Yeah, I mean, look, so we saw the start with the Umoja, which could be an early game god, scales very well into the late game, but then you see a quick reply from Baba Yaga and Baron, so they want to scale, and it looks like they've been inspired by the games, the set that they've just seen that Mumbo played, and they want to scale into the late game and get that Boomba's Hammer online. They're going to be playing into a Heimdall, so, not too much difficulty in that lane. Umoja and Heimdall just relatively safe.
Fun.
And a Bastet pick, maybe taking it away from Magic Feet.
Yeah, that is, I think, a strong pick for Sarpe, but namely a pick away from Magic Feet. Maybe not something the Wargs were ideally banning out, but definitely not something they wanted to go up against. What is the activity as far as levels go? When do you expect this Bastet to really start to get active for the Wargs?
I think it depends where she goes. She could be put in the jungle here, and she will be relatively effective against the Baba Yaga because you're not getting knocked up by that ult too much. You can kind of stick to her when she's in her ult. You can get in and out and poke her and force her cooldowns and reset. Same with into Baron in the solo lane. You're almost never getting pulled because you always have that jump up. You can not out sustain him, but you have no problem with his poke because you end up with Soul Leader. So maybe a Bastet assassin into a mage solo lane. They want to put some pressure on that lane and not let him scale into the late game. But a Charybdis not going to be a target easy for him to kill either way.
That's true, Ro. I feel like, early on here in Season 9, assassin solos were all the rage. We still see it every once in a while, but isn't the overwhelming majority of the solo lane picks we've seen here as of late. Mages maybe even starting to take that over. Thoth, for Angry, a very strong pick, and also, therefore, a strong ban for the Storm. Ymir taken off the table by the Wargs, something that maybe the Storm would have liked to pair with that Charybdis. So Baron, I think that shows you the Wargs are assuming this Baron is going to be over in the solo lane, likely won't be a Baron support. And Osiris off the table from Magic Feet as well. So we're going to have to see something different for Magic Feet for the first time this tournament.
Yeah, I think it is telling that Wargs are banning these early game focused gods in Ymir and Osiris. That maybe shows that they want to focus more on the early game and take the fight to the Storm before they scale.
Right.
And they want to ban some of those gods away so they struggle less in the early game and give them, make their strength even more powerful so they have a higher chance to get those wins in the early game.
Yeah, get the wind going a little bit early on. The Storm thinking long and hard about where they want to go with their fourth pick here. We assume still needing a support and a jungler for Magic Feet. The one, I'd argue two, maybe band centered towards Magic Feet with the Osiris and the Kleedna, and then maybe the pick with the Bastet taking something out of his back pocket as well. And then a Ganesh for the first time this tournament. Not a support pick we've seen that much.
Oh, an interesting one. Definitely scales well into the late game, but again, he will struggle in the early game a little bit. You know, he can play on the defense. You know, if he's being invaded, you can throw down your roll and get a pretty effective fight based on that. But it's also a long cooldown, so is your Mojo roll, that being said. So, you know, I can't imagine seeing him in the enemy jungle as much as like someone like Deathwalker was on the opposite side. But, and then Humbats. Okay, I guess that
shows you where Bastet's going, right?
Yeah, I guess that confirms that Bastet is going to the solo lane to pair up with that Baron Samedi.
Now, how similar, because we've seen at the SPL level, like Pagon playing Assassins mid up against something like a mage. You imagine early on in the laning phase it might operate similar to how mid would. Certainly as the lane goes on, that matchup looks different than how it would in mid.
I think just Bastet gets the lane pressure and gets to go and rotate and do what she wants rather than, you know, stick with the Baron while they're both just clearing waves. I think you'll see a lot of poke traded, but other than that, you know, not too much action. I can't imagine either of them soloing each other. But, you know, if a Bastet can force a Baron beads, if he has to start beads or force his ult, then he might be a target for the Humbats.
All right, now Angry does end up getting Tiamat here, Ro, and in the last 6 games, including the final matches of the year in the EU SEC, or the phase rather, in the EU SEC, it has only been Tiamat and Thoth. There's been 3 Tiamat games, 3 Thoth games. So this will be the 7th game of Tiamat or Thoth for Angry. And Angry has not died a lot on any of those picks. A total of 4 deaths in the last 6 games that Angry has played, including the best of 1 earlier on today. Tiamat, in the meta, out of the meta, still a strong pick. What's your take?
I mean, it's just what I like to see from a player like Angry, right? Stick to your guns. Even though you might be playing from home and be on slightly higher ping, you know, Tiamat maybe not an easy god to play on higher ping, but it doesn't matter. You have so much practice with that god already.
Right.
You know, there's no point picking something that might have big circles just so you feel like you're going to have an easier time from home. I think just stick to your guns, do what you've been practicing, and you know, have faith in how your year's been so far, because they were the #1 EU SEC team. But, you know, pairing up against the Fenrir is going to be quite difficult as well. You know, we've seen him with like Golden Blade in the jungle recently. Again, just like other solo laners. I mean, he's a jungler this time, but other solo laners, they scale well into the Boomba's Hammer. So I think, you know, across the board, Storm want to scale, and once they get there, similar to like Mamba from the other sets, you know, they're gonna be pretty big advantage in that late game. But again, Wargs going to take it to them if possible.
Well, look, so much of our conversation centers around Magic Feet for good reason. Such a strong player, such a centerpiece for this Storm team. Fenrir, the final pick of the draft for this squad, into what the Wargs have drafted here. Umoja, Heimdall, Bastet, Hunbats, Tiamat. Do you think there's some good targets, some good opportunities for this Fenrir to find an impact?
It's not going to be easy. Heimdall, a hard target to dive on. Tiamat, not always a fun target to dive on. If he can find and engage on the Humbats, he could win that 1v1. But again, Umoja can peel, for example. So it's not going to be easy for him, but he did have limited options. He had limited options because Humbats was taken away from him. The Bastet was taken away from him. Osiris was banned, for example. So not too many options for you know, his god pool.
Does this feel simple in your mind for the Wargs? Get active early, see if you can run over the Storm, and for the Storm, slow things down?
Yeah, basically, you know, make sure they're not bleeding too much. You can let them get a small lead, just don't let them get too many objectives. Certainly do not let them get a Fire Giant before, you know, Trelly brought it up, that 23, 24 mark is pretty important for them.
Well, you said, you know, maybe a nice middle ground, maybe some 30-minute games feels good. This could have the potential to go a bit beyond that, though, if the Storm have their way with their composition and spool things up. What's your take on a best of 3? I always say game 2 is well, clearly the most important. We're thinking best of 5. We say game 2 is the most important. And a best of 3, you think game 1 is where you really make your mark?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I think best of 2 probably still, but yeah, game 1 definitely important because it's going to set the pace for the whole set.
Game 1, time to check that box. Game 1 between the Wargs and the Storm, starting right now.
We'll have to see who can take game number 1 up amongst these. Another EU versus NA matchup, though maybe not quite as intense of a gap out between these ones, though. The #1 EU seed with the Niflheim Wargs up against, I believe it was the #3 here with the Xibalba Storm up on the opposite side. And immediately, you know, one thing that kind of just does catch my eye is the fact that we haven't really seen a whole lot of Charybdis, Trelly, and I think that's a pick that I kind of want to maybe talk about a little bit early on, kind of when we have the chance, because of how much longer we've been seeing these games go with how, you know, low it's been. Why haven't we been seeing so much of this god yet?
I don't know, honestly, because Charybdis sort of fits all the marks that you would want to right now. Obviously, Jingwei very strong right now because of the safety. Charybdis is just as safe as a Jingwei can really be. You have that get-out-of-jail-free card with your escape. You can use crit and Shinsai's builds very well. You can build them both, which is what most people are doing right now, and that seems to be something that everyone wants on their team, an ADC that can get to late game and play safe. So I don't know, but we're seeing it right now, and I think that's going to be a great option. Also, we get to see 4 Barons brews. We've seen so many Barons locked in, and usually only like 1 or 2 people grab the brew. It's useful, man. Buy it.
It's definitely great, but a very important thing pointed out here is another purple buff invade. We saw that earlier on in the day in one of our other matchups. Now seeing it here in this set between the Wargs and the Xibalba Storm. Also, kind of a different start. I didn't really notice it initially. You know, once we get off our desk, we take our time, walk out to the break room and into the green room, then to watch out. So we typically miss these kind of early startups here, but we've been seeing this now. 2-man split at the red between the jungle and mid, and then they transition over towards speed.
And yeah, you have a lot more time to go towards that purple buff because of that fact. Even with Invader's Curse, the first buff spawns a lot earlier. You have a lot more time, and it's less healthy. So a support can walk over, take it before anyone sees, and now you're looking at an issue where Zen does not have that purple buff XP or the buff itself, so not as much attack speed to help clear this wave. It's going to be annoying. You're going to have to watch the respawn timer, maybe tell Magic Feet, hey, they have the timer over here. They're just going to drop down a little bit before ours. Maybe rotate over by the time our next buff spawns.
Delaying that level 2 for the duo lane, at least just a little bit here. But we do have jumping into the mid lane, the 2v2 between Angry and Sarpei, and then Joshi Magic Feet on the other side. And maybe thanks to the help of some of that Oracle Harpy XP that came the way of the Wargs, able to hit that level 3 mark just a little bit sooner.
Yeah, we'll have to see where these junglers want to get active, because right now, Hoonbots, I don't think Sarpei wants to get active, but looks heading towards that purple buff. This is what I was talking about. Magic Feet seems to be ignoring that side of the map, but here we go. We might see a wraparound here.
Sarpei jumps in, but a quick Whirlpool form will make sure to get Zen out of danger instantly, and that will be an immediate disengage as far as the fight is concerned. However, a posture up towards the purple buff could be an easy invade for the side of the Niflheim Wargs. Meanwhile, we see Magic Feet invading on the bottom side for the blue buff to steal that one away. Purple buff does go over to the Wargs. That's another pool of XP stolen away from Zen.
So this is exactly what I was talking about. The junglers are splitting this side of the map. Sarpei focusing on the duo lane, trying to get Spudio ahead, trying to get that AD carry online very early, whereas Magic Feet goes for the blue buff invade, trying to get Uzi ahead, trying to get this Baron online. It looks like Kana's going to find a kill, maybe 2?
A 2v1, and he'll find both of them? Kana starting off strong for the side of EU with the Niflheim Wargs coming up with an early 2 kills in this game.
I don't understand. They really dropped the ball on the invade. They have to have overcommitted a little bit too much. Now you've got quite the lead if you're the Wards. 2 kills towards Kana, who's probably trying to stack into a Soul Eater. I imagine you have the goal to outright buy that right now with the First Blood bounty as well. So Kana is going to be a force to be reckoned with in this Soul Lane. Can probably back up for free here and buy it already.
You see Sarpei rotating over, though. If level 5 is hit by this Hun Bats, could be a reinitiation. Kana already 5 has access to that ultimate. We'll throw it up against Uzi to pick him back in and bring him right over to Sarpei and slow him down. A leap over the gaze is good, and Uzi should go down with one more auto, but the Assassins can't find it. Instead, it's Feet turning it back around and getting the shutdown kill on the Kana. Now Sarpei on the run from the Fenrir.
Magic Feet has to be so close to level 5. Does have the stun. The Brutalize will kill, but Sarpei could just jump it, and it looks like won't have the chase down there. So just going for the blue buff, trying to tick over to level 5, despite the large blunder of the 1v2 where Kana just gets 2 kills. Nice shutdown by Magic Feet now. Gets to go in to get that Ragnarok and look towards the other side of the map. There are a lot of beads on that left side of the map, as you can see. 5 putting a lot of respect onto the Fenrir, but you should be able to find some targets here, and Kana obviously used them as well.
Well, you were saying Kana wanted to go back and buy a full Soul Eater that he had. Well, he did get to do that. He probably just didn't want to do it the express path via dying in the midst of that. We do get to take a quick look at the First Blood. Just level advantage and just 2 individual 1v1s that Kana's able to take. The slows and then the damage after is just enough. In fact, it's only a 2v1 once he gets to the totem.
Yeah, it looks like Magic Feet really went for the blue buff, and then the blue buff just didn't go down, and then they're like, Uzi's like, guys, I needed my blue buff. I can't really help here. I don't have any mana, and just an unfortunate series of events there. Well played by Kana once again, confirming that blue and then just having the chase down. So despite getting shut down, still a level lead in that solo lane. Bastet once those rotations start coming out, it's going to be painful, but it looks like maybe trying to get their first purple buff of the game is Zen. The Preds is around here.
They really did stop. They saw Preds on the map and said, do we really have this purple buff? And can we really secure this one? The answer for now is at least no. But looking a little bit at the builds here, we've been seeing this Golden Blade pop up a lot with some of these auto attack-centric junglers, more so like the Nemesis, the Mercuries, maybe even the Kali's kind of thrown in here. But maybe because we've been seeing so much more of the auto-centric Fenrirs as of late. I mean, I'm thinking back to the Berserker Shield kind of style of play. We do see it picked up here by Magic Feet. How do you feel about that with the Fen?
I love seeing these Golden Blades. It just makes sure that your clear is much faster. You're able to run from camp to camp, get a little bit of extra movement speed. And since you're clearing those camps quicker, you can get to the ganks faster. You can just farm more effectively. So it looks like Kana was able to steal away a good portion of the back camps of Magic Feet. So now that Fenrir is going to be hurting for a little farm, but I don't imagine there's going to be too much fight over the blue buff because take a look at where Sarpei is. Not really close, sitting still around the mid lane at the moment, trying to put some pressure onto Joshi. Obviously starting with the Charon's coin, you get those stacked up for free with that Baba Yaga passive. Not going to be like that Warlock staff build just yet.
No, and the only god in the game who's going to be able to get those kinds of free stacks is this Baba. And maybe that's why we have been seeing that rushed over the Warlock staff, or at least rushed ahead if a Warlock staff is picked up there. Are you buying into Baba Yaga Saga at this point? I mean, we've been seeing such great play out of Zeros, at least for now. Is this god that one that we should be keeping our eyes on as the weeks continue?
I definitely think just late game, Baba does crazy damage. The issue was always, you know, are you going for this stacking style build or are you just going to go for the damage? And it looks like more people are seeing that. Look at this, though. Magic Feet wrapping around.
Akana does throw out the cat at Magic Feet, gets picked back up, and now it's Sarpei rotating over. Fear no evil will hold back Magic Feet. He'll pick up one, but a quick beads out of Sarpei. A leap back in to slow him down, but not enough damage out of the Wargs to close that one out. Magic Feet should make it out just fine, as well as us.
He's lazy backing, though, and Preds is wrapping around. Won't be able to commit that much, so Magic Feet will get out of there. Beautiful ult by Kana, by the way, to immune the pull, but also recognize that Magic Feet was probably coming around the corner, and will go down. It looks like In My Zen has to beads as well. Spudio getting very aggressive at this tower line.
Where did Spudio get a 2-level lead over Zen? Nothing has been happening over in that dual lane trap.
Zen hasn't got a single purple buff.
You know what? That's fair, I guess, but good lord. I mean, obviously closer to, you know, the 1.5 levels, but the fact that we're 7 minutes in and Spudio already has that much of a lead, that is astonishing to say the least.
Yeah, it's one thing to get your second purple buff invaded, but to get your first purple buff invaded and then everyone on top of that is going to really start to add up. Uzi does get the heal proc, so will not be getting soloed this time around. We'll be able to back underneath that tower. Very low is the Baron, and unfortunately the blue buff spawning, and you can tell exactly where Sarpei's pathing.
Shins will take a bit of poke here from the mid laner. Angry, back on the Tiamat this time around, one of his other top picks. Joshi drops down the house to throw out some firebolts to the enemy team, but it's not going to do a whole lot this early on in the game. Angry and Preds will be more than fine. Instead, they'll just go back and clear up their way.
I guess you could say Joshi brought the house down.
He did indeed. He did bring his cabin house down.
I just like the, you know, the wordplay there. It's a home sweet home, but also bringing the house down. Lots of damage being done, but another thing to add is when you're in the house there, you get a lot more of those passive stacks. So already 3 onto the Charon's coin for the Baba Yaga, but if you look at the levels, the Baba Yaga passive is not going to get you any gold or XP. So right now, Angry has a 2-level lead in that mid lane. On the Tiamat, actually has been using the Lizards pretty effectively to clear when you're not in lane. Usually something you save for the later game portions, but if you're able to just free farm like this, using the Lizards whenever you have to back, it's a great way to make sure you don't miss any XP.
We do see stacking pretty much across the board for everybody here. The Soul Eater already done for Kana. Ultimate used onto Uzi. We'll get the coffin out at the least. Kana stunned under the tier 1 tower. Probably the most ideal spot for that to happen. Sarpei rotating over with Magic Feet right behind a jump for a jump. We'll make sure that Sarpei is able to find an escape path out of there. No fear, no evil, no Ragnarok expended.
Yeah, Magic Feet does have the beads and the ult available, but without that stun, no real reason to try and continue that fight. You have to watch out because Kana's beads are down. So anytime you hit that stun, probably a pretty free pull underneath the tower. Uzi, though, is stacking that Warlock, so has a fair bit of damage to follow up if Magic Feet's able to stick around here. And it looks like just going for the Greater Scorpion. Magic Feet could come over if Kana gets too aggressive, but not too much damage without the Baron ult.
Typically has been that level 20 point we really see Baron specifically kind of come online. Jump over by Magic Feet, does pick up with the Ragnarok, gets the beads out of Sarpei. Overhead smash is good, but the pillars are slowing him down. Magic Feet needs to find one way out, but it's a one-way ticket right back to the fountain. Sarpei credit to the kill. The firebolt's over the wall by Joshi will be enough to close out and make it a 1-for-1.
Honestly, Magic Feet dying early does kind of stink for them, but Fenrir can just be a ult bot later. Getting a kill on a Joshi, that's what's really going to start to swing there. Obviously, Sarpei getting the credit is going to help out as well, the swim bats, but look at this. Prez is going in here.
First rebuke used. Ozzy rooted out, slowed down, and taken out as Kana picks up a kill onto his opposition one more time. 3-1-1 for the Bastet solo, and yet again, another purple buff invade on that left-hand side. A blue buff unsuccessfully taken there by the Wargs. That one actually does get secured by Oceans, but maybe this is what you were talking about earlier on. Zen wants the purple buff, but Spudio is just not letting him have it, at least not for free.
Yeah, Spudio's going to be poking in my Zen out pretty effectively here, but Magic Feet did use Ragnarok, so Spudio, if he has a Bifrost up, should not really worry about this gank, and it looks like there will. I was going to say, does he get the stun and try to CC, but unfortunately, jump off the mark, and Spudio will just teleport away. Even with 3 kills, Kana's level 12, but Angry is also level 12. Just a farm machine is this Tiamat, going from camp to camp, having the lizards in mid, and look at this. There's going to be a Trebuchet going down mid lane as well. So Angry just farming up so effectively and could have some pressure onto the tier 1 tower here.
I like that Angry threw out the damage around the house, thinking that maybe somebody was right behind it instead. Joshi will walk into the lane and be faced with the Trebuchet. The minions holding it back just a little while. Don't imagine we'll see a whole lot of value out of this one specifically, just kind of throwing it out because you have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, underneath the tier 1 tower there, they seem to be body blocking effectively, so no more tower shots will be taken, and the Trebuchet will just fall down there. But if they grouped up properly, maybe could have went for a siege. Probably not, though, just a little bit early on. And looking at the pressure right now, Sarpei doesn't have any beads available, probably wanting to play a little safe. Obviously, Magic Feet is a bit behind right now, but getting Ragnarok pulled underneath any one of these towers could be the end for the Hunbat. So Sarpei probably playing safe for a reason.
I love that Kana's not even like using his abilities on the wave. It's only to keep poking Uzi at his tier 1 tower line at this point, but Kana still be able to clear those waves out. Ocean stunned out by the mid laner. Angry, Fear No Evil will hold him up against the wall. The pillars drop down, and Oceans is trying to find a path on out. Can Magic Feet and Joshi come over in time to save him? Yes, they will. Magic Feet will be able to find a path out just the same. That's 2 ults for 1 to try and take down the elephant.
Yeah, the Wargs are very deep right now in the Xibalba Storm jungle, and here's why. Uzi's blue buff once again will be taken away. Last time was able to get the last hit on it, but still, the presence was shown. There's really no free buffs right now on the map. The Wargs are being ruthless. They will not let any bit of farm go for free. If you're looking at my Zen, pretty much stuck underneath the tower. Usually Spudio's using that ult aggressively, having to get the Whirlpool out, and then staying very far back. That's why we're seeing this gold differential, obviously. 4-2, not going to be that crazy, but 2,000 gold, that's where it's coming from.
2,000 is definitely the bigger number, and one of the larger leads that we're seeing in these early games for this current meta right now. Typically it sticks pretty close to that 501k mark, and then as we start approaching the 25 to 30 minute mark, that's when it starts to go up there. But also that nearly 5,000 XP lead, very important at this point in time, especially with Kana being a full level up. Almost was a level up for Angry in the mid lane, but Joshi does seem to have closed that one up. Still, the other big gap is going to be in that dual lane with Spudio up.
When you said 500 to 1K mark, I thought you said 500 1K, and I was like, that's a lot, man. I wouldn't have said anyone ever had a 500,000 gold lead. Magic Feet, though, immediately
Could you imagine?
Tries to go for the gank, and Spudio just says, hey, I have eyes everywhere, and there's going to be no time you're going to catch me out. I really think Magic Feet is wasting his time on the left side of the map. There is 0 kill potential on the Heimdall unless he Bifrost to wave as like a pseudo teleport. Uzi, though, he's in some trouble.
It's going to be beads taken away. Sarpei will throw some damage, and the coffin used as well. So Uzi will expend that ultimate. It'll get picked right up and used with 2 ults in response. The double assassins of the Wargs take out the mage in that solo lane one more time. A 3rd death now onto Uzi.
Yeah, there's just no real way to keep Uzi alive right now. The Warlocks and the breastplate. Looks like Magic Feet looks to get aggressive here.
Does find the beads off the stun. Sarpei trying to fight back in. River's Rebuke and the damage from Joshi are enough to take down the jungler. It's a 1-for-1 trade at the end so far, but Magic Feet still fighting in. Kana being chased out. A leap is good. Kana is low. The body blocks are enough to get the beads out of Kana so he can find a path on out. And at the end of the day, it's only one traded out for one.
Yeah, Joshi has been able to be very effective in these fights, catching up a little bit. Angry has not been really rotating, hasn't done too much damage in this game, really just trying to clear the wave effectively. Honestly, Joshi with the 2 kills still is doing less damage than Angry, but that time around was able to get the last hit there on his Sarpe, making sure to get the beats and the kill. If you're looking at Magic Feet's build, doesn't have too much cooldown just yet. Once you get that Transcendence online and stack, then you'll get a little bit more, and then you can start using that Ragnarok more effectively. Beads from Kana and Sarpe, that's got to be the target next time you're charging up for this Ragnarok.
Magic Feet going for a Transcendence second item, maybe something that kind of catches my eye here, as we've typically been seeing if these junglers are going for that stack item, they grab it up first, but how do you feel about a second item Transcendence from the Fenrir?
I think the Golden Blade is just to make sure your farm is really on point early, and then you can start stacking way more effectively. So I don't hate the Transcendence second at all. Also, it's just a better and quicker power spike. Transcendence really doesn't come online too early, but the Wargs are trying to go for this Pyromancer here, but Magic Feet spots it out pretty early.
Down to half HP, but not enough burn on the side of the Niflheim Wargs to really commit to that objective, especially with 4 players of the Storm on that side of the map. We haven't seen much out of these Hunters. They haven't made any rotations out of the dual lane just yet. And so all this XP that Spudio had gotten earlier on in the game is still ringing true for him here at this midway point, 16 minutes in, still with that 1.5 level lead up over Zen.
Now, that seems to be the only time we've really seen this Fenrir try to get aggressive in the mid lane, and Angry sort of just leaps away and doesn't really care at the moment. Pred's always going to be nearby to help heal up as well. Has put a little bit of stock into the Emoji healing. Obviously, we see the Divine Ruin finish by Angry, but it looks like they're going in here.
Uzi does have the coffin as soon as he goes through. The heal is not going to get any value. Instead, it's left over into the coffin, but it's his own burial coffin at this point. Kana puts up his 4th kill of the game, and the Niflheim Wargs regrouping over towards this left-hand side for the other 3 players.
It looks like, yeah, okay, I was going to say, there's no real reason to head over to right now unless you're just trying to get a wave. The fight's already done. Uzi's dead. He's not coming back. The teleport is going to be up, but not for 20 seconds. Try to look for Gold Fury or pull something. It looks like, though, the Storm are just recognizing they're a little bit too far behind right now to go for any sort of play. And it looks like they're rotating over here, maybe trying to defend this blue buff. Joshi and Oceans to the rescue, getting Uzi's blue form, so Kana has to back away.
What a good team, making sure that Uzi can fight through Spudio in the 1v1 against Zen. Spudio will chase down this Whirlpool form, needs a couple more shots to take it out, but that is beads for ult expended, as Spudio is able to continue to hold advantage on this left side of the map.
Yeah, and my Zen did have the mob, but had no idea the Gallarhorn into the ult was coming, so you can't use your ult when you're getting knocked up. Beautiful play by Spudio. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Sarpe head that way, but right now, eyes are on the Pyromancer, and I don't think Josh is going to be wanting to step up to this.
I'm not sure if Josh even knows that it's happening until he sees Kana around the corner. Pyromancer goes to the Wargs, ultimate by Kana, just a little wide right to be able to pick up the mid laner. Joshi goes back to his farm game along with Oceans. A very quiet game so far out of Joshi and Oceans. We saw early rotations in the start of the game, and you know, one of the points you bring up was Magic Feet doesn't want to get aggressive in the duo, can't really get aggressive over here on this right-hand side. So at what point, though, does it become more difficult or maybe even impossible to really kind of make a point in this mid lane?
Yeah, it seems to me that right now, no one's ever getting Pred's beads down, and that's usually the target when you pick a pick like Fenrir. You look over at the support and say, hey, you should be a pretty easy target. You don't have a CC immune ult as your Moja. I'll just pick you up and get some free kills. But because of the way that Pred's has positioned, and also the way that the solo lane is just miles behind right now, Magic Feet doesn't have too many great targets for the Ragnarok. We've seen a few connections that resulted in kills, but besides that, I don't think there's any real avenue to fight just yet. The Wargs are not making many mistakes on the map. If you look, all 5 beads are up right now, and no one is forcing them except for Magic Feet.
So maybe then is the silver lining for Uzi on this right side in the solo lane, is that silver lining for him, once he gets that level 20 point, is that when it's kind of okay because he's got Bumba's hammer, or is it at that, even beyond that point, it's not going to be quite enough? Because the Niflheim Wargs, they're going to take this Gold Fury, they're going to push that gold lead up even further than it already was, nearly sitting at that 5K mark at this point in time. it's just getting worse on the side of the Storm.
Yeah, and all while that happened, Kana rotates over and gets the home sweet home from Joshi pretty much for free. So Joshi holds on to the beads, but ult is going to be down now. Sarpe is not done trying to get aggressive, and it looks like Prez is also trying to get aggressive. Very split are the Wargs, but their purple buff's up, and they're ready to get it.
Hey, they got it this time. Ocean's able to help secure that one. So Zen maybe finally gets a purple buff to his name after Spudio has been constantly bullying him out of that lane from literally minute 1 up until the point in time that we're at now. I can't say minute done because the game obviously isn't over at this point just yet, but 20 minutes in, Spudio nearly level 20. Same for Kana, 19 on that Bastet.
My whole point there was that the Wargs were going for their second purple buff. That's why I said they're going for their buff, and then Oceans just steals it away. So it is now the Xibalba Storm's buff once again. In my Zen has not been picking that up too much, so for a while I just considered that the Wargs extra purple. You know, they've got their one that spawns on their side of the map, and then the other one that they have the timer on and show up at pretty much like clockwork every time it spawns. This time around, Zen will be able to wear that belt around his waist pretty proudly, so good on them for getting a little bit of farm. Zen almost went for the tower there and then thought better of it, and we'll have to back up here. All things considered, only a level down right now. A full Deathbringer, which means you definitely don't want to fight Spudio, but Zen has been staying relatively close in farm given the situation. Uzi, however, is not going to be very tanky at all if he does run into Angry. Only Breastplate and HP online, whereas Angry has Penetration, Flat Pen, and Soul Reaver for that HP.
It's going to have a lot on the side of Angry and still has plenty more to go in his build. 2 more items left for this Tiamat. I think bringing up that Deathbringer is very important because not just is there more crit naturally by way of that, every crit that Spudio hits is going to hurt just a little bit more. So
what
little 1v1 potential that Zen had before seems to pretty much be completely invalid at this point.
But we can see one massive W for the Xibalba Storm, and that's that Angry has 0 stacks on Karan's coin, whereas Joshi fully stacked it like 10 minutes ago.
That was the first item that he bought.
Yeah, he's got 0 kills, 0 assists, so he's got 0 stacks, and if you look at that, Joshi's item is way cooler than Angry's item, so that's one glaring W, but Sarpe finds out Uzi, and I'm thinking once again Uzi's going to be falling here.
Uzi down to half HP, does get a nice heal, the coffin to immune the fear no evil, but these assassins will chase the mage to the end of the earth, and Preds will jump over to have a little bit of fun for his own. The sacrificial lamb here on the side of the Xibalba Storm, and it only continues to get worse for them. The Niflheim Wargs are pushing over that 5K mark already now, and they're going to need Joshi, they're going to need Zen to step up once we get to these late game fights, because the Fire Giant has already been started up by the Wargs. Oceans might be the only one with kill or with steal potential here, unless he goes down, and he does manage to get his dash caught out, and Sarpe puts him in the ground.
Looks like Joshi is in the ult trying to damage out Kana. They aren't going to be pulling the FG anymore, trying to bait into a fight, and Magic Feet's taking the bait.
Magic Feet walks into 4, jumps in the middle of all of them, gets picked up for 1, and will immediately go down himself. It's a double kill for the jungler. Sarpe on the Niflheim Wargs continues his onslaught with his Hunbats, and the Fire Giant started once more.
Yeah, no one from Xibalba Storm is going to be able to post up here. Obviously, In My Zen was still in left lane when this FG dance started. Channeled the back and then realized, wait, where's my team? They're all dead, so heading back over to left lane. This will go the way of the Niflheim Wargs pretty much for free. A few relics used, most notably just Kana's beads, but besides that, no real kill opportunity if you are the Storm, so just back up, get as much farm as possible. The Wargs, they're coming for tier 2 tower.
Uzi is not having a fun time on this Baron in game number 1. Kana, Sarpe have relentlessly been bullying this Baron Samedi, obviously down to 0-5-2 now. And maybe just waiting on that level 20. I mean, going back to the conversation before that Gold Fury, is that level 20 just the magic number? Does Baron just become that much more valuable, or do you think 20 is not even a factor at this point?
Oh, don't get me wrong. Baron gets much more valuable at level 20. I just don't think this Baron is going to get any more valuable at level 20 because, again, there's no magic prot in that build. That's going to be Spectral Armor trying to survive the crits. Angry is going to be doing way too much damage. Uzi will not be able to get the coffins off as long as the carries are around. And it has nothing to do with the playstyle. Sarpe has just been all over that solo lane, all of these buff spawns. And, of course, Kana getting the 2v1. like minute 0 is going to definitely go a long way as well. So unfortunate playstyle. Even with the Bumba's Hammer, I don't think that's going to be enough. Uzi is just way too far behind right now. At this point, you're trying to set up, hit as many wrap-em-ups and life of the parties as you can. CC for your carries because you've got a 2-0 Baba that's got a lot of damage online with the fully stacked Charon's Coin and Soul Reaver. And you do have a Deathbringer Charybdis who also has not fallen. Your 2 hard carries are alive and have not fallen yet. It's just hard for them to free cast.
It's just wild to me to think that that's the first time that we saw Spudio take part in a fight, despite how far ahead that he's been for the entirety of this game. Zen is able to hit level 20 throughout all of this farming that's gone through, so finally the level gap cannot get any worse, but it is that item disparity that's becoming even more problematic as these teams now push over towards the left side of the map. Niflheim Wargs with only 4 of them. Sarpei not here quite yet.
No one has half of Kana's damage right now.
Oh, no.
And that's legit. That is literal. No one has half of Kana's damage right now. So if you're looking at the Bass stat.
Oh, half.
Oh, there we go. Now Angry has gotten there just with that onslaught. But either way, Kana is doing a ton of damage. That's the story there. You got to watch out. And it looks like Oceans is trying to find Dark Pillars and
finds it.
Sort of.
Definitely throws it out there, and it holds 2 people in place, but who's really the one trapped inside of this cage? It's going to be Josh. He pulled back through, has to use the beads to get away from the ult out of Kana. Tier 2 tower goes down, and the Niflheim Wargs are poised to continue pushing forward. Sarpei did use his ult in that mid lane, but Tier 2 there should go down. Just the same as the fight over towards this left Phoenix.
The Trebuchet is helping out here on the defense, so they
Is
will
it?
have to back up just a little bit. And now, with these Oni minions, they will begin their siege. Oceans does not have that ult available, and now looks like Spudio's ripping away at that Phoenix.
Keep your eyes on Joshi, though. Ultimate is available to this Baba Yaga, and he's hitting very hard, especially with that Soul Reaver proccing through. As he pulling back one with the coffin, Kana does get stunned. River's Rebuke popped out, but Angry decides to jump in aggressively with Preds to deal some damage back to Oceans. Meanwhile, Magic Feet in the backline gets the Aegis off of one, but immediately the damage is returned right back to him. But it's the side of the Wargs that are falling low. Zen finally able to find a pick for himself. He'll grab one amidst it, and now it's the Wargs on the run.
No, they definitely have to stop this chase here. Way too much healing. Even 4v5, the Xibalba Storm should not feel confident in running into how hard Spudio is critting right now. It was a great kill, don't get me wrong, and a very solid defense, but I think if they chase that all the way into the jungle here, they probably end up losing that Phoenix anyways. Just too much damage. Either way, great ult by Preds to try and split out, but there was a little avenue where they were allowed to run through the rivers, and that was pretty much all they needed. So much damage coming from Joshi there, and honestly, Uzi got a great life of the party off, despite what I said about not being able to survive through the fight. Lived just long enough for Magic Feet to get to the back line, get double relics, and they still finished that kill on a Sarpei. Fire Giant fell off, and you don't lose any birds. You're down like 9k gold, give or take, but your Phoenixes are up at this point.
So does this fight right here give you a little bit more hope for the Xibalba Storm? I mean, that's the first true 5v5 team fight that we've seen so far this game, and the Xibalba Storm were able to not only push back the Wargs, but even find a pick. Does that instill a little bit more hope, a little bit more light for this team as we move towards the Fire Giant?
Yeah, a solid defense for sure, and there is a little bit more light there. Just unfortunately, Uzi still does not have the gold to finish up that Bumba's Hammer, and now FG's about to spawn in about 20 seconds, so that's not going to be finished, and you don't have the Phoenix to help you out here either. It looks like the Storm are sort of postured around this Fire Giant, but still not confident for anyone to peek their heads in. Oceans only really has 3 items at the moment and not that upgraded starter, so your Ganesh is not going to be tanky enough to get any wards down.
Will be a lot of damage returned back towards Oceans by Angry and Kana specifically. Uzi does now have the golden hand to be able to buy the Bumba's Hammer, has the teleport coming back up too, but could see maybe a rotation go back to base and make his way back in here. But with the Fire Giant already started, it will be too late for the Xibalba Storm to go back in. Oceans does find the knockback. Kana puts him down to a quarter HP. Oceans poked back out. The life of the party pulling in Preds, and might not be the best opportunity here for the side of the Storm.
They got Kana down, which is pretty nice, but now it looks like the Storm are trying to chase this. Still has the Dharmic Pillars available, but you lost life of the party. Uzi now, this would be the time if you want to back and get that Bumba's Hammer, because it looks like the wards are not able to pull this, but Sarpei is wrapping around. I don't think the ward caught this.
A bit of a panic there by Preds. I don't know if you noticed it, but the Sprute was popped out of him, that entangling wings on the retreat, maybe thinking that the Xibalba Storm were going to continue that push in. So that is one major relic down on the side of the Wargs as they push in towards this Fire Giant pit. Niflheim Wargs have the positional advantage for this one. Fire drop to half HP. His magic feet's picked up by the cat, but Preds is still getting poked out here by Uzi. The Xibalba Storm are able to keep the Wargs off the objective.
The Wargs do have the Yemoja healing here, but they really are not feeling confident enough to pull this. I imagine you just back, wait 30 seconds, and go for the Enhanced Fire Giant. Sarpe still trying to wrap around and find a good Fear No Evil, but it looks like no real opening, and that will be the call. Everyone back and reset here. Wait for the Enhanced Fire Giant. Spudio is going to stick around with that vision, just letting everyone know, hey, no one's going to pull it just yet. You don't have the teleport available if you're Uzi, but you don't really need it if you're Kana. You have lots of movement, you have your blink, you have your beads up. You can stick around here just fine. So it looks like everyone will do a little bit of a reset here. This Enhanced Fire Giant, if it is to go the way of the Wargs, that left Phoenix Siege would go a lot differently. So it looks like this is going to be the one where everyone wants to fight over.
A bit more of a reset, probably for Preds over anybody else. He took a little over half his health in the initial kind of startup of the fight, never got a chance to really reset. Now that he has, he's back to full HP. It's the start of the Fire Giant again, but Magic Feet and Sarpe wrapping around. Use the Sacred Monkey toss up on a Magic Feet, gets picked up by the Ragnarok, but Magic Feet doesn't have very many avenues to get a way out. Does have the leap, but Joshy's gonna hold back Sarpe, but what's the Fear No Evil? Just the damage alone, but now Sarpe is the one in danger, as those Magic Bolts from the house are doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, so much healing as well. Uzi is going to pull back in Khan. It looks like Ocean's got pulled in by the Hundreds of Bass.
Kana doesn't get stopped though. It's gonna be a double sprint route popped out by both these teams, and that will be a disengage for both of them as they make their way out. Only one goes down in the fight, and almost losing Uzi on the side of the Storm.
Yeah, and it looks like the reset will be solid here. Uzi has to go back. Again, does not have that teleport, so this is going to be a true, right now, 2v5, unless it looks like Joshua will join. Then 3, but that Fire Giant isn't taking too much damage, still at about 70% health.
Still being chipped away by Spudio. Angry finds some damage up against Oceans. Monkey toss by Sarpe into the backline. Will not use the teleport. Instead, it's a River's Rebuke. A full commit to grab this Fire Giant. The Niflheim Wargs will secure the objective, and the fight continues in. Sarpe dives in aggressively with that jump, but doesn't have the Fear No Evil available just yet. It's an ult by Spudio to get the beads out of Uzi. A leap in and a riptide from Preds will seal the deal to take down Uzi.
Yeah, Uzi, I guess, thought he was a little bit tankier than he was. Beautiful riptide in by Preds to make sure. Even though the beads went down, you don't have enough HP to survive that one. And now, what could have been a reset into a left lane push is now just going to be, we're heading straight for your right tower. Remember, Magic Feet had to use a lot of relics last time, and it looks like Sarpe will not go for the chase. Pay attention, though. Ragnarok is available.
Ragnarok is up. Only ultimate on the side of the Wargs is Kana's, so keep an eye on where he might throw that one in the fight. But the interest of the side of the Wargs is towards that right side Phoenix. The first bird will finally fall. And the Niflheim Wargs playing with a very hefty lead here, 16,000 gold, all very relevant when you look at basically a full item up over everybody on the Storm.
Yeah, remember, no backdoor protections anymore now because of Enhanced Fire Giant. This Phoenix is getting chunked down, and it will fall. And it doesn't look like the Xibalba Storm want to form much of a defense here. Just the left Phoenix available as Kana swing and a miss with that Hundreds of Bass, just trying to grab really anyone at that point. Getting a free relic would have been nice. Oceans doesn't have beads, so pulling him back in would have been pretty solid. They are going to go for the Primal Fury here, so not going for that left Phoenix just yet, but you don't really have too much more avenues to get back into this game. Uzi still doesn't have any magical defense just yet, been trying to survive, and if you look at Angry's damage, I think he ended up passing Kana during that fight, so doing a ton in this game right now. This Tiamat, 0-0-3, does not even begin to explain the impact that Angry has had.
Both Kana and Spudio sitting on over 3,000 gold in hand means that they can go back and purchase Elixirs of Power. That is the stage of the game that we are currently at, Trelly, even 2,500 in hand.
Well, one team is at
here. Well, one team is at that point of the game, at the very least here for the Wargs. And kind of looking there, we did get to see a strong defense on the side of the Storm earlier on, but it seems now that with all these items picked up with this massive lead that the Wargs have had, is there another defense opportunity at this final Phoenix for the side of the Storm?
I mean, I've seen how much damage that Joshy can do, and honestly, if Magic Feet can find a way to somehow stop Sarpe from casting, there's no like Magi, so if you get the beads down pretty early, that would be a solid bet, but it's going to be so hard. The Niflheim Wargs honestly can just sit there and wait until these Fire Minion waves push up. Spudio probably like 3 shots the Phoenix, and then at that point, who's defending a 5v5 under the Titan? It's just so much damage that the Wargs are having here, and no one has been able. I didn't even think Angry and Spuddy have had to relic that many times. They're 0-0 for a reason. They've just been positioning so well, and the tanks have been playing pretty much flawlessly.
And remember when Kana had like top damage by like 10,000 here? Well, now with this late game Tiamat, we're starting to see Angry climb up the charts. He'll throw out that bull under the Phoenix. Not going to find too much out of there. Instead, it's just a Phoenix defense by the Xibalba Storm, keeping the minions out. Still very important because those Phoenixes do hurt right now.
Oh yeah, it's very hard to tank these one up, but no one is going to be going in just yet. Fire Linear Wave and right. Sarpei may try to go in for the blink, the Fear No Evil, but it looks like Magic Beat is trying to wrap around in that mid lane as well.
Top right side, though, the minions are starting to push into the Titan. That's going to force one person to go back and deal with it. Otherwise, the Storm are going to have to make a play here. They'll try with the life of the party. A Fear No Evil keeps Uzzy back. The Riptide holds him in place, but not enough damage or follow-up to take down the solo laner just yet. But the Niflheim Wargs have that Trebuchet, and we'll finally get to see some of the siege that can come from this minion.
And it looks like the Titan still has some minions, and now the blink in from Kana.
Joshi down to half HP, and that Tornado is chunking away at his health bar. The Trebuchet is starting to slap away at the Phoenix's HP. Kana goes back in for some damage, but not going to find it just yet. The Niflheim Wargs are slowly burning their way through this last burn.
Yeah, the Wargs honestly just have to defend here. Spuddy, it looks like the Enhanced Fire Gun actually did tick away, but finally that left bird will go down, and the Titan has taken a fair bit of damage as well. The Wargs are going to have to retreat here. It looks like mid and right Phoenix will be up shortly. They might try to stick around here and see if they can find a pick. Kana does not have that much HP, though.
It's 5 versus 5, but highlighting that Kana is low. So is the Titan, though, 40% HP. But it's a lot of HP still with all that additional. Makes it a little bit harder. Dharmic Pillars traded out for River's Rebuke. It's a battle under the throne room, but the damage is all on the Titan on the side of the Wargs. They will be the ones to take game number 1 in the set.
Yeah, that Titan was just a little bit too weak to try and defend there. I think they sieged a solid defense. The Storm were trying to buy their time until maybe Uzzy could get online because he got put so far behind because of all those ganks. And again, Kana just pretty much going beast mode in the first couple minutes of the game, getting that 2v1. After that, they stalled a bit, but the Wargs just a little bit too much. Again, the carries going undying. That's something that you really can't let happen. I don't even think Joshi died, or in my Zen as well. So to be fair, all the carries went undying, but you didn't have the tanks to set up for you. It was a little bit too hard to win that one.
Yeah, it really kind of feels like this wasn't we're going for the knockouts. We're kind of going for these TKO style of play here out of the side of the Niflheim Wargs. They didn't necessarily need to kill anybody else, aside from Uzzy, the few times as that one went through. But, I mean, before game number 2 even jumps up, I mean, what kind of quick changes do the Storm need to make before they jump in?
And there's a lot of different things that I think playstyle diffs could have changed. I don't think it was a comp diff. I think it was just the way they played. So maybe finding a little bit more confidence and getting those buff timers down. If you're going to be looking at the left, maybe get that right buff timer down as well.
We'll see if the Xibalba Storm can make any adaptations in game number 2. That one's coming up right after this.
But he had the horsey, and horsey, don't you stop! Fido care!
I gave up dabbing for Lynn.
Cool. No more dabbing for Final Call. He looked at me and said, I'm going to be on that stage next year. I'm going to become a world champion.
Ripping through! Titan down, ball 3! A double kill myself!
Wargs over the Storm in game number 1 of this knockout best of 3 here at SMITE Masters, powered by our friends over at Alienware. And remember, if you're bad at SMITE, it's not because your skill is bad, it's because your gear is bad. And if you want good SMITE skill, you need good gear for playing SMITE. Alienware provides that. All of our pros here playing on the Alienware Aurora Ryzen 10 Edition desktops. You can find out all about that by following them on Twitter and Instagram at Alienware and heading on over to alienwarearena.com. Thanks again to Alienware for powering us here in the SPL, powering the Wargs as well in game number 1, as Ro is with me to break down exactly what we just saw. And Ro, we wondered how the ebbs and flows of this game would look as things went a little bit longer on. Would the Storm be able to get their feet underneath themselves? They fell a bit far behind early on, stabilized a little bit, but ultimately the Wargs just too consistent in those team fights.
You said ebbs and flows, and it's the ebbs and flows of the meta as well, right? Like we've seen Baron come in and just kind of be dominant as soon as he hits that Boomber's Hammer mark. But what do we do against that? There's counters to everything in a MOBA that is SMITE, right?
Right.
Connor decided, you know what, I'm going to put the pressure on him early game. He got given, well, he played it perfectly to be fair, but he got this great 1v2 against Magic Feet, invading his blue buff because his Baron honestly needed quite a lot of help against an assassin. He is a mage on the other hand.
My goodness.
But yeah, playing this perfectly, got the jump on both of them, got the 2 on both of them, gets 2 cats out from 1 for each of them. You know, that's the perfect start to a game for a Bastat into a Baron. And then they just keep coming back, right? How do you get a Baron not to get to late game? Well, build a 12, 15k lead before he gets that Boomber's Hammer online.
Yeah, don't let Uzi get there. And we saw that with the Zhang Kui the other day. We were talking about it going into this set. The Zhang Kui ended up winning that game somehow, but it was like despite of the Zhang Kui, not because of. But it's that style of game where the solo lane just kind of got jumped on. And so the Bastet for Kana really just unlocked early on in this game. And then another good example of a Hunbat's finding some value here, Ro.
Yeah, great blink in front of that Ganesh there to stop the dash and secure that kill. You know, this is at a period where they're pulling that Fire Giant and trying to push their lead, that 23-minute period. So it's really important to be able to get those kills in order to secure that Fire Giant so their enemy team doesn't get to the point where they want to fight, you know, into that late game. So a great job by them prioritizing and getting aggressive when they needed to.
They absolutely did, and the Storm were able to find a little bit of return pressure, but again, it was just a little bit. Joshi goes undying at 2-0-1 here on the Baba Yaga. So another example of a Baba Yaga. This one not quite as successful as far as team goes, but still a good KDA there. Yeah, when your jungle plus solo lane goes a combined 1-10, you're always going to have a hard time bouncing back in a game like that. And then on the flip side, Angry, we wondered how this Tiamat would look. Not a pick that a lot of mid laners have played so far this weekend, but I suppose it's still one of those just rock-solid picks. The right player can apparently do 34,000 damage on it.
That's right. I mean, he's had a lot of practice on it. We're really glad he stuck to his guns and played it anyway, despite the ping difference. You know, he did the job he needed to. You know, he played when he had the utility in front of him from the Emoja and the Bast pulls occasionally, the big Humbat ult occasionally, and otherwise just do his job, poke, help his enemy, his own jungler clear those scorpions and stuff like that, and just build the lead over time.
And so the Wargs' massive advantage now, especially in this knockout best of 3. You're ahead now in game 1. You've got a couple of games to play with. You don't need to win game 2. You'd love to, especially considering you have to go play another set after this. You'd love to get out of this with a quick 2-0 win if you're the Wargs. But it's time for the Storm to maybe tweak some of the strategy. The composition aimed at later on in the game can work, but we've already mentioned that not when you fall a bit far behind earlier on. As a coach, you go back in, you're talking to your team if you're the Storm now. What levers are you pulling, maybe in picks and bans, to change up some strategy?
Look, I mean, in picks and bans, I'm not quite sure, but straight away, let's not make those early game mistakes again. I don't think Magic Feet should be going towards the Baron solo and trying to bail him out. If he is going to bail him out, then secure his own blue buff, not invade the enemy blue buff, because that Baron isn't going to help you with that 1v1 against the Bastat, who does have a better starter than you at that point. Number 2 is maybe too many eggs in the one basket in terms of late game picks. You know, you can mix it up a little bit. You can build a strong late game comp without being too weak in the early game, and that may be where that's where they faltered really, right? Because yeah, Wargs put the pressure on in the early game, so they're probably going to do that again. That's the strategy they came in with. It worked for them once, and Storm have to adjust, Let's just bolster up our early game a bit. If we want to play the late game, we can still do that. We got there, but it was just too little too late.
Right, you like some of the bridge picks, some picks that
Right.
help move you from early to mid to late, things like that. And if you're the Wargs, you can kind of stick with that playstyle. It's been interesting. Again, a lot of the conversations we had coming into this week were the EU teams are the ones who love to pump the brakes and slow things down, and the NA teams are going to be running at them. Which style of gameplay will win? And as you mentioned on the desk going into Game 1, it feels like everyone's just kind of figuring stuff out. But
That's right.
a lot of the EU teams have been playing some faster-paced Smite than I expected, and the Wargs definitely surprised me here in Game number 1. And I like some of the draft strategy that we saw there. Take away some of Magic Feet's strong picks, force them onto something like the Fenrir. And, there were moments for the Fenrir you'll always get in a longer game, but I think Magic Feet was largely held in check.
He was, yeah. I just think his, positioning on the map and where he put his pressure was a little off. I just think he should have been on the other side of the map. He had a Humbats on the enemy team that he does win the 1v1 up against in the early game, and yet that Humbats was invading his jungle while he was trying to invade a jungle, but on a weak side, and that's just not something you want to do. Look, it's high risk, high reward. If he gets away with it, that's great because you accelerate this Baron towards the late game, but he kind of left his dual lane just to dry.
Yeah,
really,
and I have to dry a little bit.
And so when you see Spotio with a 2-level lead at like level 9, it's pretty rough for Zen at that point.
And so if you rewind the clocks a little bit, picks and bans, the way that they rolled out for Game number 1, Umoja first pick is what the Wargs ended up snagging for themselves there. Ended up being a pretty strong early look. Again, I think that's that style of pick. You pick it first. You're not really revealing too much of your composition, and we're really nitpicking here at this point because we've broken down pretty handily how Game number 1 ended up going. And then Baba Yaga ends up being an answer back alongside the Baron. Do you think you're revealing too much picking a Baba that early? Do you think
Baron,
that gave the Wargs the ability to say, all right, let's just press down on the gas with their next few picks?
Yeah, but it also could have just been the Wargs that have watched this Mumbo set before this one, right? And just seen like, well, there was a lot of late game. They ended up winning, so I imagine other teams are going to copy that. Let's just try to get one step ahead. Let's predict what they're going to do and try to counter it ahead of time. And it worked. It wasn't the most dominant performance. I mean, they had a 12k lead, which is large at some point, but they weren't able to break the base on that first Fire Giant. It took them quite a while to get that EFG. So it's up to them. Well, it's up to Storm to adjust now, and I imagine Wargs will go in with something similar.
Yeah, I wonder if here in picks and bans for Game 2, the Storm try to grab something for Magic Feet a little bit earlier. It was 5th pick in this last game that we just saw for Magic Feet. It was a later on pick in our first set of the day as well, if I remember correctly. So Magic Feet, and maybe that's just strategy here for this team. Maybe that's Magic Feet saying, I feel comfortable enough on whatever pick I might end up getting at 9th or 10th overall that I don't necessarily need it earlier on in the draft. Let's lock in some more pressure for the rest of our team. But when the Cleednas are gone, the Bastets are gone, the Hunbatses are gone, Magic Feet is going to be down his own tier list a little bit anyway.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, strategy-wise, Bastet and Humbats were the 2 highest performing gods on the Wargs team last match. So if that's what we lost to, let's ban it away and see what else they got in the pool.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to. If you don't have an immediate answer to it, and you don't intend on picking it for yourselves, definitely worth a toss by the wayside here for the Storm. Wargs are going to stick with the Cleedna ban, as we mentioned, and then the Jingwei will also take a seat. Needless to say, Jingwei feeling like one of the strongest, if not the strongest, hunters in the world right now. Though in our last round of picks and bans, you were a little bit surprised that the Euler Chernobog also got banned out. Both of those 2 picks still available here.
Yeah.
I wonder if left open, either of those 2 would warrant a first pick.
Look, I think the Emoji is still going to be a first pick. Maybe Storm really still love that Baron, and you know what? They ban away the Bastet, clean his banned. Those are 2 assassins that would give Baron a hard time.
There you go.
Wargs don't want to play into that Umoja. They first picked it last game. They know how strong it is. And it's up to Storm to like, you know what? Do we want to double down and pick that Baron again? Or did we get beaten with it last time? Or we don't want to do it. Let's go with the home.
Is Coach making eye contact with the camera here? Are we looking into the distance and it just happens to be right where the camera is? I can't tell. All right, I think it is just a distance look that happens to be in the general direction of the camera. I thought we were having a staring contest for a moment. Heimdall ends up being first pick for the Storm. And so, it's interesting. Ro, watching the hunter meta unfold a little bit before our eyes, because the stim-based hunters is what we expected to be very strong, and they are.
They are.
But Heimdall has just not gone away, despite needing a little bit more time to spin up those wheels.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing he's missing is that stim, right? Everything else, he's a really strong hunter, and if you can do objectives anyway without having a DPS stim on your hunter, then no big deal. You know, now you have the better team fight. You have a more durable hunter in Heimdall who can teleport away, ult away, and peel for himself.
Yeah, Chernobog was banned out first in game number 1, left open, and now picked alongside Khepri here in game number 2. So the Wargs grabbed themselves a pretty strong duo lane row, not only in, as you like to call it, sort of the protect the president style of support with the Khepri. There is some setup in lane with that. And apparently between these two teams, Chernobog is a pick to be sought after.
Yeah, look, he scales well with Khepri. That'll scale well too. Their lane is somewhat aggressive, or can get somewhat aggressive, but you know, they're kind of jack of all trades. He could sit under tower and farm as well, and they have no problem scaling. But you know, Khepri can rotate and force a fight, and Chernobog can follow.
Yeah, allows for some rotation later on in the game, split push, ult into fights, things like that. Some flexibility for the Wargs, to be sure, in their first couple of picks. The Storm, though, answer with, as we've already mentioned, the Heimdall, but then a Baron and a Nike for the first time in this tournament. And so that, I don't know, it gets a little confusing. I suppose Baron could be mid, could be solo Baron, and Nike goes somewhere else. What's your take on these two locked in?
I think right now I'd probably push Nike towards the jungle, but honestly, I'm not sure. It could be a Nike support. We've seen that before. Could be Baron support, you're right. I would think that Ozzy is pretty confident in his pick, and we all know that Baron solo is good. We don't see something super aggressive in the solo lane coming up from Wargs just yet, so he maybe feels safe enough to pick it. And maybe the Nike is just something they like elsewhere on the team. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I wonder how. Because, you know, Nike's strong, but depending on what the Wargs are able to itemize, chin size feel really good at whittling down that health bar, and something Chernobog and Nike, or Kali rather, can build into. We'll see later on in the draft here for the Storm. Osiris and Nem both taken off the board, and so again,
okay, there's a junglers.
Magic Feet is going to have to, if we're assuming it's Magic Feet who still needs a pick, Magic Feet is going to have to wait a little bit to grab himself something here. So with a Kali gone, an Osiris gone, a Nemesis gone, Mercury's, Hunbats, Kleedna, and Bastet all gone, Magic Feet's going to be picking out of that pool again if Baron or Nike aren't one of the two picks for Magic Feet. And then a Tiamat and a Baba Yaga both taken away from the Wargs. Does leave Thoth open, and that's something that that the Wargs already picked in their first best of one earlier on today for Agree. And here you go yet again. Is Thoth in a strong spot that gives you some excitement here, bro?
I think he is in a strong spot, but Nike might actually be somewhat decent into him, so maybe they've done this on purpose. You know what? Ban these other two gods that have CC immunity away from Wargs and play into something like a Thoth or a Merlin. They picked the Thoth, and you know, I was, in my mind, I was watching a Nike dive a Thoth just there, but in the end, they picked some pretty strong backline that doesn't want to be getting in there in the Kukulkan.
Yeah, wow, the Kukulkan ends up being mid, and then Daji out of the jungle. All right, so we wanted some playmaking potential for Magic Feet, and Daji absolutely has that. Dive between a Nike and a Daji seemed to be very strong here for the Storm. And then, of course, the Spirit of the Nine wins to just knock down some of that damage. As a whole team comp now for the Storm, do you think it synergizes well?
I think it does. I think the Nike can actually just go in alone and buy a lot of time for your team, even if you have to sacrifice your life, whilst Baron and Daji can pull the enemy into you, and you're pulling an enemy straight into front of like a Heimdall or a big Kukulkan ult and something like that. So we might see some pretty big wombo combos out here. The one question mark is they need to control this Kali and not let their carries get taken over.
It's so unfair for Magic. He's even got like the little Johnny Bravo like one hair curl on the front of his forehead, and he's good at Smite and doesn't have Twitter. It's unbelievable for this guy. Just keeps checking. Oh my God, he's doing this in front of us. Unreal. Now we hope that his Daji play can stand up to what he's doing on camera.
It's casual to him too.
The fact that was so casual, just a quick toss behind the back and then a catch, no big deal. All in the meantime, the Wargs are still wondering what they're going to pick 10th overall, and we're assuming it's going to be a solo lane pick that the Wargs still need for themselves. So I want to talk about this Daji a little bit. Pressure on beads ends up being the name of the game. Geb can help out in that regard a little bit. Do you think you lose some pressure in the solo lane, though, by picking this Geb here? Does the Stone Shield and the ability to help out with Daji help out there? You think Geb's a good final pick?
He certainly lose some pressure, but, I don't know how much Nike is really doing anyway. Like I said, she just might be diving the enemy team, and that's what Geb is great at peeling at, If you want a Kali to carry your game, well, give him a Geb shield, but what about a Kepriol as well? So
Right.
I think this Kali is the star of the game. They could just have Thoth dashing in as well with the amount of peel that they have at this point. But really, they're going to live and die by this Kali and just support her as much as possible.
Yeah, man, that sounds obnoxious to me. Destruction, and then, assuming all goes well, a Scarab's Blessing, and then Stone Shield's in there. And then all in the meantime, right, Chernobog's there. Thoth is letting some damage fly from the back. How do you deal with it then if you're the Storm? Are you hoping that you can spread out your damage enough, make the Scarab's Blessing a hard choice? I mean, what's the answer to a style of composition where you're hoping that the Kali can stay alive?
Look, I mean, maybe, big Kukulkan ult when the Kali isn't ready for a quick CC so she doesn't get that ultimate off. Maybe Kepri's caught sleeping and doesn't get an ultimate off in time as well. But otherwise, just hope you're fast enough to get away or be ready for her to flank, So if you can counter her and make sure she doesn't get able to stick to your backline, which Kukulkan's a fast god, Heimdall can teleport away. Maybe they can get away, but they've got a lot to contend with.
How about scaling-wise? Because remember, the Wargs were able to ask a lot of questions early in that game and sort of took the game over. You have a Kali on your team. How much do you think that slows you down?
Slows them down a little bit, but it definitely bolsters their late game as well. If they're saying these games, even when they had a 15k lead in the last game, they still got to 35 minutes. Whatever, it's going to get to level 20 anyway. Let's pick a strong late game. They obviously want to go to late game on the other side of the booth, I guess.
Right.
So
hallway maybe.
Yeah, hallway. That's
the
it.
glass. I don't know.
Yeah, that one. So it's going to get late regardless. Let's pick a late game team comp and see how it goes.
Look, the Wargs are in a spot now where they're able to play with a little bit more flexibility. They've got game one in hand. The Storm need to win a couple straight. And the Storm have drafted themselves a composition that can make plays. You see a Palau, and then there's a Spirit of the Nine Winds. Things like that might need to be comboed together. And just prior to getting into game number one here, we'll be in shortly, don't you worry. How much weight do you end up putting on a Daji on the flip side here? Because it feels like that's the style of pick you're hoping, a pull-in from the Palau, into a Spirit of the Nine Winds. If Magic Feet has a rough game, are there still avenues for the Storm to have?
There is. Look, he's got a Baron in his back pocket as well. I'll lump them together, the Daji and the Baron, right? They can
That's a good point.
both pull enemies in. If they're just doing that consistently, not necessarily on cooldown, but enough to threaten the beads of Kali, it's going to scare her from wanting to go in. Granted, she still has a Geb ult and a Kepri ult, so she shouldn't have to beads too often. But we'll see. If a Kali is scared to engage, then the Kepri and the Geb aren't doing much after all.
Do you think the Storm are on a bit of a timer this game with a Kali on the other side? I mean, that is one pick in a game of 10 characters, but is it a strong enough one pick that you feel like the Storm, they got to end this game or get it under control by a certain amount of time or else the Wargs win it?
I definitely don't think it's like the Mumbo scenario we saw earlier. I don't think either team has a huge advantage late game. I would give it to the double support-esque team comp, but it all depends on the Kali as well. Like I said, if they can force those beads and nullify that Kali, then it won't be as big of an issue. And if they get an opportunity, some space to pull an objective, they can do a lot of DPS with Kukulkan from those tornadoes and great secure, one of the best secures in the game. And if Kali can't get in that team fight before that type of thing happens, then they could fall by the wayside.
Over under
on the fence.
Let's say 4 kills in the first 15 minutes of this game. Over under.
Over, I'll go 8.
Wow, you're doubling it up.
Yeah,
you think 8 kills in the first 15?
Yeah, look, it's been a long day. They're going to get sloppy.
Yeah, at some point, at this point, the Storm are saying, all right, we're either going out quickly in an 0-2 or we're pushing this one on to a game 3. Can't extend it out that much further. Unfortunately, we are going to extend it out a little bit further. Right, I speak it into existence. Quick pause in game, which means we will take a quick pause here on broadcast. We'll be right back with game number 2. Appreciate the patience, everybody. We will be into game two. I messed it up before going to break and immediately on the back end of the break. We will be into game two between the Wargs and the Storm very shortly here. Again, a Wargs game 1 win puts the Storm on the back foot. Now they got to win 2 straight games. We have talked a lot about the composition that the Wargs have built here, Ro, in that you got a Kali, a Geb, a Kepri. We're all trying to protect this Kali.
That's right.
Little pressure on Magic Feet on the Daji on the flip side here for the Storm. You're looking to maybe get active early if you're Magic Feet, or do you think you try to farm up and outpace the Kali later in the game? How do you play this if you're in the jungle for the Storm?
Do a little bit of both. I think just try to catch him or anybody else around when there's no Kepri and there's no Geb around, so he can actually pull somebody.
They're everywhere.
He's going to have a hard time pulling somebody against all those cleanses. I imagine there's going to be a couple beads on the enemy team as well. But look, as long as he can burn something and he has a little bit of cooldown so he can get that ult often, then maybe he can get some value out of it. Thankfully, he has a Baron on his team as well, so that can do a little bit of pulling himself. Double up the value and hopefully eventually pull a target into their carries.
Man, it feels like we're kind of, I'll say this, it feels like I'm kind of leaning towards the Wargs composition right now just because of what they've drafted around this Kali. Because if so many eyes are on the Kali, Destruction there, the Scarab's Blessing, cleanses, things like that. And then you still have a Chernobog and a Thoth from range dealing all this damage. You got effectively 3 carries you've got to worry about with 2 big ultimates and then 1 with the Stone Shield forms of Disengage. On the flip side, Kukulkan, not a pick that we often see, if really ever, out of the mid lane. Skill shots the name of the game for both of these mid laners here. Massive final judgment could be so important in flipping around these team fights. Spirit of the Nine wins, of course, could also be very destructive. Should be some good setup, though, here for the Storm.
Yeah, look, and objectives as well, right?
And objectives, right.
That's great secure. I think if we're seeing a steal from a mid laner, any of these games, it's definitely this one.
Yeah, I wonder if, because we haven't seen, I guess we've seen a couple objective steals, but like
By
nothing.
mostly hunters, yeah.
Nothing like disgusting, game-changing just yet. But hey, maybe with a final judgment, a Spirit of the Nine wins, something like that. Maybe one of these games will get flipped on their head. Game number 2, I'll get it right this time, between the Wargs and the Storm, just over the horizon. Magic Feet said, look, man, you might have to play 6 more games by the end of the day. You got to win 2 more here, Magic Feet, in order to make it to that final best of 3 of the day. Game number 2 kicking off right now.
I mean, you only got to win these 2, and then you got to win the next 2 after that one. So if the side of the Xibalba Storm wants to find their way into the 3rd day of play, they're going to have to start right here and right now in game number 2 of this set. It's J-Mac and Trelly one more time. And last game around, Uzi was kind of getting bullied in the solo. That's the politest way that I can put it, is that Uzi was getting bullied in solo lane. Feels that now he's gone to a pick that should be able to keep him from being bullied.
I'm racking my brain here trying to figure out why Oceans went 3 health pots, 3 multi-pots, and not just the Chalice instead of the 3 multi-pots. I just don't understand it. You got the Baron's Brew. Every time we see a Baron, I have to address it right when the game starts.
Think of his own brew.
I mean, yeah, you got to grab your brew. There's even a voice line. Be sure to grab your brew. You say it every time you get in the game. At least I do. Anyways, I really hope, number 1, that Cuckoo meta is upon us. Joshy picking this Kukulkan. Going to have a lot of damage. I really hope this is a highly contested pick. And another thing, he might be double stacking. He's starting Warlock Sash or E-Stab, so you got to get Book of Thoughts, right? It's Cuckoo, so we might see double stacking Cuckoo here. To be honest with you, I think it's just a little much to do double stack. I think it just takes a little long to get online, but against the Kali, if you're playing for that later stage of the game, it's going to give you the most power, that's for sure.
Are you of the school of thought that there is no true item that is required to be buyed on any single god, aside from maybe Kukulkan? Like, you know, we always talk about the flexibility that comes from the different builds and paths that you can take, but it really does seem like Kukulkan is the one god in the game where it feels like it's a requirement to buy Book of Thoughts.
Yeah, I'm very surprised if we don't see Book of Thoughts.
Seems to have lost you there a little bit, Charlie. Maybe kicking around a little bit here. Back to the solo lane. Uzi versus Kana is a matchup that we saw previously in last game. Uzi getting bullied on the Baron Somebody. Kana was on the Assassin alongside Sarpei. So that means that we got to see the double Assassin versus the Mage. Made it a little bit difficult for Uzi. But this time around, Kana on the Geb. Uzi on the Nike means that it's going to be a little harder to actually get a kill in that lane.
Yeah, there's going to be a
There
lot
you
of
are.
setup that you got to try and watch out for here. And again, I think the Des touched on it a bit. Magic Feet is going to have his work cut out for him. There's a lot of targets to try and focus down with this powwow, but there's also a fair bit of cleanses as well as the beads that you're really going to have to watch out for here. If you look at the relics of the wards, they have 3 beads up already, and then with the Geb Shield and the Scarab's Blessing, that's going to be even more difficult to deal with. So trying to stay away from the Guardians, as Rose said, I think that's going to be the best option for him.
This might be just one of the most annoying teams to try and find a pickup against is here with the Niflheim Wargs. I mean, you got Geb. That's already really obnoxious to deal with. You don't, Stone Shield just being such an obnoxious ability to have to go through. And then you also have the Scarab's Blessing, which on its own is another really annoying one. Now you can essentially kind of double stack that up. It just feels like it's going to be so tough for the Storm to be able to find a pick.
Okay, so confirmed, Joshi backs for the Tier 2 Warlock, so we're
Okay.
definitely seeing...
At least one.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing the Warlock staff, and again, as we mentioned, Book of Thought is so core, but looks like Hana might be getting... There's no way, that's a gap. I was going to say, like, maybe looking to get aggressive, but that's number 1, a Nike with Sigil, so not going to be doing too much damage, and also, that's a Geb that probably does not really care about these ganks for some time. Maybe when ultimates come through, if you can body block the rollout, but I don't think Kana's going to be too worried about the ganks coming his way in the lane as of right now.
Starting with that Bumba's Dagger as well, just to be able to help kind of clear their own blue buff if given the opportunity to. Last game, really the name of it all was the fact that the Wargs were constantly stealing away Zen's purple buff. There was tons of aggression onto Uzi's blue buff specifically. So now maybe, finally, these two players on the side of the Xibalba Storm will be able to grab their own respective buffs.
Yeah, and then looking in this lane specifically, I don't think there's going to be too much aggression from Sarpei because Kali doesn't have that much damage online just yet, and Nike is super difficult to gank, especially once that Sentinel of Zeus gets online. When you have that much extra HP shield, I don't imagine Sarpei sees a killing opportunity there. However, it's a pretty solid opportunity to kill Josh if you can get those beats down. Just immuning Spirit of the Nine Winds with Destruction. Even though it does some crazy burst damage, you simply cannot die as Kali. So immuning that knockup and the big burst damage should be very difficult to try and survive that if you're Joshi. I imagine sitting back about that tower line and trying to farm up these Warlock stacks. Jinsai's is going to be getting its money's worth.
It does feel a little strange that this is the first time that we are seeing the Nike, considering how many auto-attack-based gods have been popping in, especially Hunters. That barrier formation used to be the answering call to that. Well, let's see how it can pull out in the late game. A massive grouping around these mid-camps. A dash away by Angry. The Coffin will pull in Sarpei, and that will be the death of the jungler. Xibalba Storm find one, maybe. A second one, no. A quick pair of beads burned away on the side of the Wargs.
That was such a sick shot. I saw that Pred's beads, but Angry also got hit by the powwow there, so that is going to be so much Kana trying to confirm the blue buff, and we'll be able to pick that up with the blink ult. If not, there's really no mana for you to run away there, so good blink ult by Kana to confirm that buff, but very nice play. Obviously, Sarpei has blink, did not opt to get the bead, so any sort of CC is going to be sticking, and obviously Oceans rotated in, had a great coffin, and they are just able to chain stun, can't get the destruction off, and now you've got some great targets for Magic Feet's ult next time around.
We've been seeing when this Sigil does get picked up, more often it's going towards the Sigil, the old guard, kind of the damage mitigation style one, compared to the infused Sigil, which is the, in my opinion, the more fun one to get when you get to jump in the middle of a fight and just see 3-4 explosions popping out at a time in the midst of a fight. You imagine that Uzi goes towards more of the defense-oriented one, though, this game.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it will probably be Sigil of the old guard, trying to be tanky as possible, despite the fact that he's going Transcendent, so maybe just trying to get a little bit more damage online in this lane. You're against a Geb, so trying to go tank stats, you don't really have to worry about any magical defense right now because Geb isn't going to be doing too much of it. You're also against a Kali who isn't going to come online and be able to shred through your HP just yet as well. So I think Uzi, pretty smart build here, just recognizing that he can go a little bit more damage-oriented, possibly rotate early on and try and help out the squad. Will find Sarpei in the jungle and just sort of poke out because you can clear the wave so quickly with this build.
Then we'll drop one of those Lost Knight minions to grab our new chalices to start filling up that obelisk. The 6-minute mark has hit, which means that they will become active. We saw a couple of trebuchets last game. One of them that actually did end up helping the Wargs push up towards the end and start working towards that Phoenix. Another one kind of just to deter in the mid lane more than anything else. And you can see with the aggression that the Xibalba Storm have this game, they're even able to steal one of those Knights on the opposite side of the map.
Okay, J-Mac, I think we call GG right now because the Storm...
Oh, we're calling it now.
The Storm have bought 5 stacking items, so that's official, right? So they all double Transcendence, Warlocks, Thebes, and Dev Gauntlets. But if you look on the right, Crusher, Jadem Crown, you can't stack those items. What are they thinking?
Yeah, what are they doing? I was actually looking at that a moment ago thinking, man, it's been a while since we haven't seen a Transcendence or like a Warlock staff in that solo lane. And Sarpei's not even going to go towards anything now after that Crusher picking up a Light Blade instead. 7 minutes in, the Xibalba Storm have a 2,000 gold lead. Where did this gold lead come from?
It's very difficult for Geb to get last hits on the minion, so look at the tower, already about half health. Kana's been not getting any of these last hits on the minions. That will start adding up, obviously. Some buff invades. We saw Angry get aggressed upon the beads are down, but now they are finally back up. So Magic Feet said, hey, we won't be able to find a kill because the Kepri cleanse is going to be a thing, but we'll steal away as much farm as we can. So quite the gold lead has built up, as you just highlighted, and it looks like it will continue that way. Spudio is on this Chernobog, which doesn't really want to contest if anyone's going to be running at you. Your 1v1 is not solid. What you excel at is these rotations. You can beat in my Zenda any single one of these fights, but in a 1v1 setting, you probably just want to keep your distance.
Magic Feet will clear away these Oracle Harpies to get a little bit of vision around this Fury, though it may still be a little early. However, we are seeing 2 more objective secure style of picks, and that might just be enough.
This is free.
For the Xibalba Storm to go over. No rotation from anyone on the side of the Niflheim Wargs. Joshi can't ult here just to guarantee the confirm. The Gold Fury is going to go the way of the Xibalba Storm a little bit early on it, but it doesn't matter because the Gold Fury is secured for this boys in blue.
Yeah, Book of Thoth, Kuku probably confirms that one a little easier, but the Warlock Sash, a little bit less damage either way. Just a great time to pull. If you look around, no one was even close. It seemed like maybe Angry was going to peek his head through, and then he was like, you know, I am a lone Thoth. My Kepri is not here. Even if I beat the Palau, there's a lot of ways for Adachi to chase me down. I'm not going to stick my head over near that gold Fury. We're seeing a pretty massive gold spike already for the Xibalba Storm. This is exactly how you have to play this matchup. They highlighted on the desk. You're on a bit of a timer against Akali late game. It is just super hard for your carries to live that. And right now, they're forcing the issue excellently.
Magic Feet, level 9 on the dodge. He picks up the Hydra Star, the tier 2 towards that Hydra's Lament, which once it got its buff kind of became a staple over there in that jungle. But as the state of the game has really kind of just been this very slow pace early, mostly this kind of farm-oriented pace when it comes to it. Niflheim Wargs, yes, you want to make sure you get to that late game, you get that Kali online. That's kind of the win condition there. Xibalba Storm, though, where is their kind of win con to be able to make sure that they find a win and take themselves to game 3?
I think they have a really solid late game as well, as long as Magic Feet is able to consistently get some beads down, things like that. It's just there's a lot of members of the enemy team that don't want to deal with that, but it looks like Preds could be in some trouble here.
Preds is going to be okay just for now. Doesn't get pulled back in. Instead, it's Magic Feet running away as fast as they can. Oceans pulls up one in the coffin. The Serpent of the Nine Winds does manage to clip a couple of players. Sarpei is low. It does pop that destruction just in case it's getting a little too dicey for the Wargs.
Yeah, a lot of damage and a lot of relics and ultimates are going to be down. So I think the Storm are going to be pretty happy with that, at least for right now. They get the beads. Spudio ended up beadsing as well as Angry. So you have some more targets, but it looks like just going for the Pyromancer is going to be the option here. No one is around once again. The Wargs have no real avenue to try and contest. They're looking at the left side of the map. They're trying to catch Zen out here.
Zen should be okay. Does manage to get through that Bifrost. Did pop the beads, though, just to guarantee that that one could go through. So the Hunter is out for the Xibalba Storm. And for now, we're returning back to a state of farm. That 37 or so 100 gold lead the Storm have been able to pick up for themselves now with only that single kill, that one first blood bounty that they were able to get on towards Joshi. And Joshi was someone that we were looking at in game number 1, Trelly, to really kind of be that linchpin, to be that carry for his team. Do you think that with this lead that he's been able to pick up, not actually going for Book of Thoth, by the way, going into
that's why I'm shaking my head.
Yeah, I looked over, I saw you shaking. I'm like, what are you looking at here with Joshi? Yeah, not going for Book of Thoth. At least maybe not yet. Fingers crossed.
No, there's no way. After E-Staff, he's committing so much HP. He has to get Charon's Coin or Obsidian Shard after that, or Soul Reaver. Those have to be your options. I would love, I mean, for me, Book of Thoth and Polynomicon are staples on Kuku. It's just such a fun build. You get as much damage as possible. This time around, I think Joshy just wants to be as tanky as possible, not getting 1v1 by Sarpei in the later stages of the game. So I understand the build. I'm still calling it a cardinal sin of Smite. You got to build Book of Thoth on Kuku.
I mean, it's part of his passive. You literally get to double dip your passive. That's what I was getting at earlier. You know, unfortunately, I couldn't hear your thoughts onto it. Was, you know, it feels like with Kuku, he's probably the only god in the game that has a true, like, must-buy item with that Book of Thoth just because of how it does work with his passive there. Level 12 does get that Ethereal Staff on return to base, but Uzi rotating over with Oceans will put a little bit of pressure in this duel lane. Not going to find anything there, just some damage more than anything else.
Yeah, Angry has to be extremely careful right now in the mid lane because those beads are down. If you're using Scarab's Blessing simply for a cleanse, you're not getting the full use out of that ability. You really want your teammates to be able to defy death, come back in, and help out with the fight. So that's going to be something you want to keep your eye on. And once it starts being used for a cleanse more often than not, you're still devaluing that ability. Right now, though, Primal Fury, pretty close to spawning, and it looks like Preds could be in some trouble.
Does use the beads to try and get away from the coffin. He's going to be pulled into something at the very least. It'll be the Pow Lao instead. A return in by Spudio, and Magic Feet is the one who gets turned on. Sarpei the 9 wins, plus Uzi in the backline. Will find a kill up onto Pred. Sarpei down to half HP as Uzi is batting away. Sarpei has to use that destruction. A leap in by Uzi will not find the damage necessary. That ult not going to have enough. And the Niflheim Wargs should be able to find a path out of here. Unless Oceans and Uzi have something to say about it.
Uzi is doing so much damage in the backline. It looks like In My Zen is trying to sneak around and find an ult. Spudio will get knocked up, but not wanting to commit the ult. If the beast comes through that, you're underneath a tier 2 tower, and you just used your best escape. Primal Fury, though, should be on the menu here. It looks like Uzi will actually go back over to right lane, so I can't imagine there will be a Primal Fury without your solo laner and without Spirit of the 9 Winds online. But Joshy did get to go back to base and buy at least one bug. I still think that's going to be a Soul Reaver, unfortunately. Great pull in by Magic Feet. Little unfortunate that you don't have beats once you come down from that Paolo. So great CC chain by the enemies as well, just to make sure that they don't have to deal with that dodgy after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome that he got to jump back down after the Palau, but unfortunately he jumped right back into an ultimate immediately following after that one. Angry's able to get some tag shots in there. Uzi, though, on this Nike, already starting to be a bit of a bully when it comes to these team fights. When it comes down to the Wargs to the lake, and how are they going to be able to poke through the shield and all the health that Uzi has for himself?
I mean, there's a few different ways that you could do it, but right now it just seems like Uzi is way too tanky. Has the Transcendence, has the Sovereignty online as well, and Angry's not doing any sort of damage to a Nike right now. That Thoth has Charons and Divine Ruin, but it's just so much HP to try and shred through with that shield. I think they want to ignore Uzi if possible right now until the later stages of the game. Spudio can help out shredding that down, but right now Uzi seems pretty unkillable.
Yeah, Uzi's going to be the one to keep your sights on more than anything else in that solo lane. Last time around, getting a little bit bullied. This time getting to return some of that favor up against the opposition, the Niflheim Wargs. A little bit of a struggle to start this game out. It was a 3,000-4,000 gold lead that this team's been able to establish off of just a couple of very small picks. And we were talking a lot about this double cleanse that's going to come from the late game. So far, though, Magic Feet's been able to find a lot of value out of this Palau.
Yeah, it turns out when Magic Feet and Oceans both ult together, you can only cleanse so much. Preds use the beads on himself and then use the Scarab's Blessing on Angry, and then he's like, wait, now who's going to save me? Like, if I saved you and then I already saved myself and there's even more CC, how am I going to survive? The Spirit of the 9 Winds didn't even clean that up, though, as he was able to rotate in. So Preds playing it extremely well, about as well as you can as a Khepri, just not able to live through that much CC just yet.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough fight, to say the least, for the Wargs, already being down to start this one out, but it's EU. The Europeans do love going to these late games. They really love making you really work to try and find these kills out here. I'm definitely going to keep my sights on around the objective play more than anything. The fact that objective secure is the name of the game for both of these two mages. But so far in just our first day and a half or so of play, Trelly, we haven't really seen objective secure be all that impactful just yet.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends, because right now Thoth and Kuku can be CC'd pretty easily, and that's something that's a little bit more annoying for the Thoth. Obviously, Angry has to fully charge up the Final Judgment to get that burst damage off, whereas if you're Kuku, you could just send the Spirit of the 9 Winds and run. You don't have to stick around and be like, I have to, so it's a little bit easier to confirm if you're Joshy right now, but still, having both of these dueling ultimates are going to make sure these objective fights are a little bit more focused in. You can't just say, hey, we're going to pull it, we're going to confirm it. No, you got to be watching out. Where are the mages on the map right now? Do they have beads? Is their ultimates available? Those sort of things everyone's going to have to keep track of.
And we do have a bit of a brief pause, as you guys could see, before we jump back into game number 2. We're trying to get back in as quick as we can for you guys, but making sure these players are all still good to go on their matchup here. A very important game, to say the least, for the Xibalba Storm. If they win this one, they still got to win another game, and at least to get out of this set. But then they're only going to take, like a 5-10 minute break after that and have to hop into another set to try and make their qualification. So a long run for really both of these teams, because the Wargs, even with their 1-0, winning this one still means that they need at least 2 more wins in order to find it. So these are very important games, and this is really where that fatigue is going to come in, that war of attrition between both these teams to try and find their way into the qualifications.
Yeah, it's one thing to say that the fatigue's going to set in, but also I think it's a little bit better to come in while you're hot. You just got off a game and you get to jump back into a set. It's one thing, though, because whenever I play like a really long game of Smite, you're in like a 45-minute banger, and then you queue up again, and you think that you're doing the late game damage that you were just doing, and then you're like, wait, I'm not doing any damage at all. It's hard to jump back into the early game portion when you just played a long game, but those are some of the most rewarding dubs, so we'll have to see if the Xibalba Storm are letting this day affect them.
Yeah, especially if you're playing like the same god that you got, so you get to play him twice in a row. You're still thinking you're 6 slotted, level 20, hitting for like 1,000 damage or whatever, because I know you're playing mages more often than not anyways. Me, I'm sitting here going, well, I'm still only going to take like 200 damage as a tank. Well, maybe not anymore. I've been seeing how much damage these hunters are able to do these days with this kind of a crit build coming out here more than anything else. And really the hunters have been a lot of the name of the game. Obviously in that, I think it was our 3rd game of the last set. Maybe not as impactful for the hunters. The mages kind of seem to be the big name, though.
Yeah, that's true. We've seen a lot of big damage numbers from these magical characters in the mid lane. The double stacking build, I mean the single stacking build, I should say, Charon's Coin and Warlocks are both stacking items. But when you hear double stacking, you probably think of Book of Thoth. Either way, these stacking items, what they really benefit is keeping you alive early, and then making sure your late game power is pretty insane. So you're going to see these large, big damage numbers coming from these mid lane mages, from the Thoth and the Cuckoo specifically, because they're stacking up ready. All the items are already completed, and then they just get to that late game portion and they start swinging.
Is it just disappointing, though, that we still don't see the Book of Thoth built by the Kukulkan? We can now jump back in to game number 2 between the Storm and the Wargs. Primal Fury pulled already by the Storm. Spudio is here. This one might not go as freely as the Storm would like. Uzi will push one away. Primal Fury falling low. Preds will not be able to get in and steal that one. So finally, another objective goes down. This one, the way of the Xibalba Storm.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there's any way that a Kepri outconfirms this comp that we certainly have, but we shouldn't be seeing it. It does make for a great storyline when like a little tick damage from Kepri 2 is able to outconfirm. But as long as you're pretty crisp with your ability confirmations, there shouldn't be happening. Pyromancer will be up shortly as well. The Xibalba Storm have been pretty on point with these objective timers, but it looks like Sarpe is sort of hanging around this duo lane looking for a gank, but Oceans is also here.
Sarpe will walk into the lane and then jump right back out. So not going to see any action on the duo lane at the very least. Uzi picking up an Oni Hunter's Garb to kind of round out their 3rd item. So a little bit of magic defense, which is something that Uzi lacked in the previous game, going up against Angry on that Tiamat. And we got to see the amount of damage that they could do. This time, Uzi, though, correcting that wrong and making sure to buy a little bit of each.
All right, if we can see how much gold Joshi has in hand, if he backs at 1150, it's Book of Thoth. If he backs at 1300, he's going the Soul Reaver that I'm pretty sure he has to go here if he wants to make sure that his late game power spike is still going to be on point. Pyromancer finally spawning in, and look where the Storm are, all grouped around this objective. So they're making sure to get this pretty much immediately, everyone. But of course, the ADC and Preds is here, but isn't going to have too much damage.
It's going to take a lot for Preds, especially with the fact that Oceans is playing zone duty on this Baron Samdi, which will confirm the Pyromancer once again for the Xibalba Storm. So 2 objectives each between the Pyro and the Gold Fury will go to the boys in blue and continue to push this goal lead up. Charlie, we're sitting at 6,000 gold now here, 15 and a half, almost 16 minutes in. 3K experience, maybe not as staggering, but the fact that all of the map's neutral gold is going to the Storm just means that their late game and their time that they have to wait to go up against this Kali is getting that much shorter.
Yeah, I would say right when Zen finishes this Wind Demon, he could probably rotate over to FG, pull it with the Spear of the 9 Winds, and just trying to get this lead going even more. That's really the item that I would say your burn on FG will be enough. Obviously, with some crit, it just helps you do it a little bit faster. You have some penetration, you have a good bit of damage with what Joshi has built, but I think you want a little bit more. It looks like Uzi's TPing in here. They're looking for, I assume, pushing with the Trebuchet.
Trebuchet will be able to get to the tower line and start firing some of those shots through, and that should be more than enough to drop this one down. Oceans will take it up a little bit for Zen and Joshi to deal the extra damage. Remember, with every shot of that Trebuchet, it loses a little bit of its own HP to trade out for some of that tower damage.
I'm so happy. I said on SPL Waiting Room that I want to see teams group up around the Trebuchet and see if they can help push their lead, and that's exactly what we're seeing. When Uzi teleports in, but he takes a lot of damage.
Uzi could potentially go down. The final judgment just off the mark. A Blink Cataclysm by Icon, and the Serpent of the Nine Winds once again tearing through the backline. Oceans goes down. The tower shot after was enough. Preds is pulling Uzi back in, but it's not going to be enough. Preds goes down. Joshi, credit to the kill.
Trebuchet still hitting that tier 2 tower, though. That could be some good, but it looks like Angry's going to dash in here and finish off Uzi as well. There's going to be a lot of damage, but I don't think they're trying to chase this.
Zen is still here, and so is Joshi. Tier 2 tower is gone, but does not seem like the Storm want to push any further. They trade 2 for 1 and a tier 2 tower on the Niflheim Wargs duo lane. Do you think that that's a win for the Storm here? You know, trading out 2, definitely not great. But getting 1 and a tower, is that worth for them, Trelly?
I mean, mathematically, it is worth it, but you are up against a Kali, and you gave that kill to a Thoth, so that is going to hurt you a little bit. But if you look at the gold lead, it only climbed. And also, I got to highlight that Trebuchet was the one that got that tower. No one was in range. Everyone ran away, and it hit like 4 extra shots. That's probably like, what, 800 damage, give or take? So if they didn't group up and push there, that tier 2 tower never goes down. And essentially, a 1 for 2 is never worth it. But you got the tier 2 tower because of that Treb. So able to push this gold lead even more. That stalled long enough. Now Oni Fury's about to spawn in. If the Storm just keep going back and forth, left side of the map, right side of the map, this gold lead is going to get a bit out of hand.
We do see another Trebuchet, though, picked up by the Xibalba Storm. Right after their last one goes down, they were able to pick up just enough offerings to get the second spawn. This one will be pushing up in the mid lane now. The basic mechanic on that one is whatever lane has the most structure health will be where that Trebuchet spawns. In fact, there is 2 towers sitting here for the Xibalba Storm to take down in the mid lane. That's where that one will go through. But it doesn't seem like they're going to have quite the same group up to push this one.
I like how I really just had to question Preds' Relic for a second in my head. I was like, we haven't seen Sunder in so long. What is making this Sunder pick so useful? And I'm like, oh yeah, Nike Shield. Like, we haven't seen Nike for a while, which is why we haven't seen Sunder for a while. But it will be able to make quick work of Uzi's ultimate in the later stages of the game. We'll be chunking a fair bit of that shield. So keep your eyes on Preds whenever Uzi is trying to dive. That shield will be deleted. And it looks like while they're focused on the Trebuchet, Xibalba Storm are looking at this Oni Fury.
Grouping up. Sarpé is already here. Preds right behind. The Trebuchet will be taken out. And so now the Niflheim Wargs can group around to try and stop this Oni Fury. Keep your sights on Sarpé, left side of the pit right now, to see if they can find a line into the back. Kana does go through. It's a jump in by Uzi. Angry very low. Pulled back into the Pal-Lao. Has that Scarab's Blessing. The Spirit of the Nine Winds does tear through the back line. Not quite enough damage. Everybody's falling low on the back end of the fight. Meanwhile, it's a 1v1 on the other side. Magic Feet does take down Spudio to get the first kill. And Zen versus Sarpé will get the destruction out of the Ka lead. Niflheim Wargs jungler on the run.
All in my Zen had to do there was stall, and he did it perfectly. Gets the ult out of Sarpé, and now is coming right back in to DPS this Oni Fury. Great pull in, and Angry actually gets out there, which is pretty crazy because he was very weak, and I thought maybe Magic Feet is able to chase that one down. Oni Fury will be the prize, and obviously Spudio is dead as well, so the Xibalba Storm back quickly. They might be able to head right over to the right side of the map where Pyromancer is spawning as well.
Pyromancer and Gold Furies have all been in favor of Xibalba Storm this game at the least, and that's why we're seeing this nearly 10,000 goal. It's only 7 kills right now. I didn't keep track on the 15-minute mark exactly how many kills there were, so I can't recall what the over-under was that Dave and Roe were taking a stab at on the desk there, but we're at not 8 kills that Roe is guessing. At the very least, I know that much here, as it's only 7 at the 20.5-minute mark. Xibalba Storm are starting to group up. You can see them moving through the jungle towards this Pyro, but the Niflheim Warriors are already there waiting for them.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Spudio is going to make that rotation over for a while. Probably trying to catch up that 2-level lead that In My Zen has. You can get some farm, get your purple buff, clear out that Oni wave, and then ult over if you really think that FG is being looked at. But right now, just going to be Pyromancer. You have a little bit more time to try and farm up. Preds will be your eyes, and Kana is going to rotate over just in case. But once you see that Spudio is clearing that wave, Fire Giant will be pulled.
Yeah, Magic Feet off to the left side will spot out Angry. Actually goes around Angry, so they got into the Magic Feet's in the back line. Uzi gets a knock up against Kana, pushing him in towards the Fire Giant itself. which has been pulled away and leashed from. Magic Feet coming back in. Kana low, 0-9 wins. Does clean through the back line there. Kana goes down. Zen credit to the kill. Angry pops the beads to get away from the Powwow, but Uzi will continue the chase forward and allow his team to back up and regroup around Fire.
Yeah, Spudio still pushing in the left lane, so has not joined the fight right now. Kana is dead, and it looks like Tier 2 Tower will be on the menu. Not trying to go for FG, and Preds is going to have some trouble getting away from Uzi here.
It's just bullying him, pushing him constantly with that barrier. Preds has nowhere to go. Zen will be credited to the kill there, and once again, Spudio has still not made his way in towards this fight. He is still pushing up that left side Tier 2, and he could be going for more, but all of the Storm are making their way back, and that'll be the call from the Wargs to at least tell their hunter to back off.
Yeah, but it looks like having to stop their back. Wait, oh my goodness, that
No
NATO
way.
almost killed Sarpei. I was like, hold that thought. We got to see if this tick damage is going to kill. If Sarpei just stopped one member of the Storm, probably able to chase that down with the Hasten Blade and the Kin size, but it looks like Oceans and Joshi both stop their backs to make sure. Uzi clears out that wave and left, immediately teleports back in. And this should be a pretty free Fire Giant. It looks like Angry's on the way, but it's shutting down pretty quickly.
Angry no ultimate. Sarpei does have ult if they want to dive in and try and stop, but it's too little and too late. The Fire Giant goes to the way of the Xibalba Storm. All 5 players on this team with that buff around their belt and only a couple of towers left to push down the map. Charlie, they could very well start knocking on the doors of some of these Phoenixes.
Yeah, Spudio just back, though. If you remember, level 17 when that Fire Giant pull started, now level 20 with a Deathbringer in hand. So that's going to be a pretty massive power spike for the ADC of the Wargs. Still, a fair bit of gold is about to go in the Xibalba Storm's hand once you get this Tier 2 tower. Probably back up and then try and reset for a left lane Phoenix push. Either way, look at this gold lead, about 11,000, close to 12. The Xibalba Storm are in a commanding presence, only 2 level 20, so we're not seeing those upgraded starter items just yet for the Storm, but they have plenty of time to do the dance, get as much farm as they can, and then go for the reset.
You do see the Xibalba Storm starting to back their way out. Minion wave pushed very far up on the left side of the map, and the Warriors are continuing to kind of keep that push up on the right side, making sure that they have ample time to prepare for this Fire Giant team of the Storm. Oceans will make their way back to base. A little bit of gold in hand for a lot of these players here. 2,200 just for Josh. That's at least a Tier 2 item plus a little bit more depending on where he goes. Even Magic Feet still has a little bit to buy when he goes back, and that will be upgrades to both of their starter items. Bumba Spear and Pendulum picked up.
Oh, I'm seeing the Bumba Spear and the Pendulum, but I'm still looking at the Root Sprint, the Sprout, if you will. It's going to be super annoying if you're Sarpei specifically, trying to get to the backline and then you just get rooted, trying to... Anything that can make you use your relics or your ultimate early is going to be annoying, and Zen is trying to catch out Sarpei. Doesn't have too much chase potential. I don't think Zen wants to use his ult to close the gap, especially against the Kali, but take a look at the top side of your map. The Wargs are rotating in, and Joshi, no, it looks like Ocean spots this one out. I was going to say Joshi might step up a little bit too far.
What? Sarpei, where did your health go? You walked up to Zen, and then the ultimate from the Kukulkan is not going to be quite enough, so we'll need some extra help from Zen. Spudio able to turn that one back around, a 1-for-1. And what a valuable pick that the Wargs find grabbing the Hunter.
Yeah, it was a good pick, but it looks like Magic Feet is not letting them get away. We'll have a massive ult here. The cleanses are available, and that's all you really get besides Honda's beat. So they will have to back up here. Uzi was just pushing mid lane during this, so it looks like it still will be a 4v4, but you've lost your ADC if you're the Storm.
And with their ADC down, that means they're going to have to get up close and personal with these Phoenixes to try and take them out. And with how little they're able to do in the damage department on the side of the Storm, they will retreat and back off to regroup themselves. But what an important pick for Spudio to grab. Comes back from being sent through the realms just to kill off the person who had sent him there.
Yeah, it would have been really nice if Zen could have got that teleport off, but the Wargs probably pretty happy about it. The whole siege pretty much stops right then once your Hunter goes away. You lose a Primal Fury, you lose your jungle, but Sarpei pretty close to that late game Kali build that you want anyway, so probably not too upset about it. You have to wait a little bit longer before that Fire Giant buff wears off, but never mind. I was going to say, maybe the Storm back up here. They're looking for a pick, but they're grouped up on a ward. Poor guys. They have no idea.
I'm going to play one of my favorite games, Trelly. It's called I Spy.
Okay.
I Spy with my little eyes, an item that starts with the letter C.
Is it the Chronos pendant that Ocean says?
Correct. You got the right answer there. Not the traditional item we see on a support of all gods.
Yeah, but I think Ocean just wants the true... It's over 20% CDR because with the resets, it ticks even more so. Just trying to survive, getting more roots. You can't really build Bumba Spear as a support, but you can get Chronos Pendant and get pretty close. But you're going to lose so much gold. It's never worth it. You'll be... I mean... right now, looking at Preds, only has 3 items online and no upgraded starters, so a little bit similar in that regard, but I think that Oceans is going to be vastly more impactful with the double upgraded starters as well. Preds upgrades the Sunder, so anyone sticking around him when he pops that Sunder is going to lose a fair bit of their HP, but again, I think probably just going to be saving that one for Uzi's shield.
Yeah, more often than not, that's where we see a lot of those Sunders come through, is to deal with what used to be a massive shield style of meta between Nike, that was such a prevalent thing to fight up against, Gebs, that was popular, and also just the old Book of the Dead build that was so disgusting to deal with for a lot of those mid laners. We haven't seen this Sunder in some time, that siphoning one. So
is it Sundering Siphon or Siphoning Sunder?
I think it's Siphoning Sunder. Well, can we get a hover on the Sunder to see which one has the ing at the end? Is it the Sunder Ring Siphon or the Siphoning Sunder? That's the important question.
Yeah, the point is it's going to break shields and it's going to do tick damage if you are close to it. That's all you really need to know about that one. Finally, though, we are going to see a full 5v5 at this FG. The reason being, there's no fire minions to worry about. Spudio is already level 12 with upgraded starters, so doesn't have to split push, but look at this. Magic Feet is very clearly in the left lane. Everyone knows he's there. There's a Trebuchet pushing as well. You have to imagine that the Wargs are going to try to pull something here. They know Dashi can't get over here.
It's going to be a long time before Magic Feet is up. Meanwhile, it will not be a long time for the Fire Giant. That one is crashing in as we speak. Angry will throw some pot shots in up against Uzi. But it took a while on the side of the Wargs to get anything going, and now by this point, Magic Feet has already made his way back towards the mid lane. It can easily regroup with the team, and as this Fire Giant dance kicks itself back up here on this right side trail, I mean, where is the avenue for the Wargs to try and find a pick to get back in?
I honestly want to see. Hold that thought. Sarpei and Magic Feet taking a 1v1 in the mid lane and getting very weak, and Uzi can clean this up.
Yeah, Uzi will be able to grab that one. An easy rend to take him down. Sarpei falls once again. 0-3 on the jungler, and that will open up the Fire Giant for the Xibalba Storm. The Wargs have some steal potential, but they're going to completely back away. This objective is going to go handedly to the Storm.
Yeah, I think that's a smart call there. Once Sarpei goes down, uses the beads and still loses the 1v1, using the ultimate as well. So a little bit unfortunate there. I think Spudio popped the ult to say, hey, I'll come help out. We'll get that pick, and then we can get Fire Giant. But Magic Feet just playing it pretty well. Spudio has to rotate over to stop the Trebuchet, but they're not worried about left lane. Xibalba Storm, they're going for this right Phoenix right now.
They'll be able to make an easy push here. 5 already grouped up, and it'll only be 4 at max for the side of the Wargs to try and defend on this. 15 more seconds until Sarpei is back up. Without a minion wave, the Storm are not going to be able to push into this one very easily. A leap in by Uzi will make me eat my words as Angry push down to half HP. Joshua will rip the ultimate through, but not find anybody on the backside of the fight. Angry will survive the onslaught of damage thrown his way. The Phoenix cannot be the same, though. It goes down, and Spudio low, Spudio down. Zen, credit to the kill. Palau, Magic Feet will not pull in Preds. Instead, we'll get the beads coming out of that one, and that should be the end of the fight on that right-hand side.
Yeah, it looked like Sarpei was wrapping around, trying to find some action there, but will not go for the go button. Remember, the beads were still down from the 1v1 before, and if Kali goes to the backline and just gets CC chain, you're not going to get any sort of value. They might see a little bit of an engage here at this red buff, but Magic Feet has the Magi's bubble. I don't think there's any fight potential if you're a Kali, so Sarpei, throw the lash and try to steal the red buff, but we already saw what happens when this 1v1 happens.
Yeah, it was a 1v1 that didn't necessarily need Uzi to clean that one up, but Uzi rotating over definitely will take some kills after the beating in game number 1. Xibalba Storm with 2 Phoenixes still left to push down. That right side one, not the most impactful out of all of them, still does make it a bit of a nuisance, though, whenever they try and push these objectives.
Yeah, they're going to have plenty of time here if they want to try and push down this left side Phoenix, but Oni Fury is once again on the table, making some more minions. Oni Fire Waves probably are going to be soloing that Fire Giant if they are ignored, so making sure to get those just to strengthen their push a little bit. We won't have to worry about any Trebuchets, but it looks like Magic Feet will go for the speed buff, and possibly, he's got red, so he's getting a little greedy. I was going to say, you can't even pick that up. What's the point of dropping it right now?
That might be the latest I've ever seen Oceans pick up a Lono's mask. He's usually like second item with that thing, but he's finally picking it up now in that 4th slot. But Oni Fury goes down to the Xibalba Storm, and now Oni Fire minions can push up on that right-hand side. Regular Oni minions for the rest of it there. Wargs were fighting at a deficit in the last team fight, that 4v5. Now with all 5 up and alive, and maybe they can find a pick on Oceans if he walks too far forward by himself. Magic Feet will be spotted out as well. Doesn't lose that bubble, though.
As far as I'm concerned, Ocean was too far, but it looks like Sarpei is trying to do the real long con rotation here. I've never seen someone go this far for the gank, but Kana blinks in.
Cataclysm finds two. Joshi knocked up, taking a bit of poke out here, but Kana is in danger. The coffin will not pull him in. Magic Feet to try and stop it out. Sarpei goes down. Joshi finds a massive Spear of the Nine wins. Magic Feet take down Kana, and the rest of the Wargs are on the run. It's only 3 left to defend, and the left side Phoenix will go down. Xibalba Storm have made their mark on this left side, and they can continue the push in. Fire minions in the throne room, but it's only Oceans here for now. The rest of the Storm are now found their way in. They should be able to take down this Titan, take game number 2, and once again now push Estrelli to game 3.
All right, you know what? It looks like Joshi made the right call, because despite the fact that didn't build the Book of Thought, goes undying, the only one who didn't die on that squad. So the Warlock Sash, the survivability of the Kukulkan was enough to pay it off. So I will formally apologize. It looks like just straight gameplay, and deleting Sarpei before destruction gets off before that siege, that stalls that out for quite some time. So great play by Joshi. Credit where credit is due. It was a nice build, I suppose.
And so it really brings up one of the situations where you can never count either of these SCC teams down. I mean, Niflheim Wargs able to find a strong game number 1, but the Storm, beaten but not taken out entirely here, are able to find a win now in game number 2, and will push us to game 3. And that, unfortunately for Magic Feet, puts them that much closer to the 6-game threat that he was worried about earlier on.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some bans against that Daji, because putting so much stock into cleanses and trying to avoid the powwow, maybe just get rid of the powwow entirely.
1 game left, 1 team going home. Who is it going to be? We'll find out right after this break.
We go the distance yet again. Game 3 between the Wargs and the Storm. We go the distance in our best of ones. We had max games in our first 2 sets of the day, and now max games in our next 2 sets of the day as well. 3 games into 3 games, and this one high impact. This is a knockout game of SMITE between the Wargs and the Storm just over the horizon. Wargs draft themselves a protect the Kali style of composition. That's the one thing the Wargs seemingly couldn't do here in game number 1. The Storm able to bounce back and send us on to a game number 3. Ro's still with me to break this one down. Ro, how do we get here? What happens in game 2 that gave the Storm the edge?
Look, when you draft around the Kali like that and your Kali doesn't get a single kill, there's your kind of problem, right? Whereas, you know, credit to Ozzy, credit to Magic Feet, they had much better games this game. So, you know, pulling the targets into their carries, they're able to do a lot more damage and keep the ball rolling.
That's a good point. When the president that you're protecting is small and weak and scrawny, right?
He's not going to get voted for.
Right. You're not getting any votes. I don't care if there's a Scarab's Blessing on the Kali. If you got nothing to vote for, I don't care. That's a great point, Ro. God, you were just on it.
Thank
so
you.
Much smarter than Mifflin. Isn't that what we were talking about in the green room? Actually, he self-admitted that. Which is slightly more impressive.
He said I kind of fought out my information, and that it's fair.
You said you what?
I won't repeat it, but you know, Mifflin type
you fart
things.
out your information.
That's right. I have a lot of it, and it's got to come out somehow.
That's such a Mifflinism. I'm setting myself up for an interesting cast. I have to cast with Miff in our next set. So hopefully, over the course of another 35-minute game, Miff will forget that I just kind of was harsh on him for seemingly no reason. That's a nice Spirit of the Nine wins. And when I talk a little bit about how the mid laners and their skill shots, things like that, going to be so important in this game, I was actually pleasantly surprised by Joshi and the hit rate on some of those Spirit of the Nine wins.
Yeah, me too. Look, he's playing into something that's relatively, I don't want to say easy to play into, but like he's not being threatened by a Geb often. It's really just the Kali they have to watch. And honestly, Sape was going for Zen most of the time and Magic Feet sometimes as well. So Joshi had that space to get those big ultimates off, like this one itself. Well, he didn't actually connect with that one, but it would have if he didn't die.
It looked good. It looked good. It flew right over the fight. Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at this fight, Zen is just chilling in the back. The only damage he takes is from a Cataclysm from Kana early on in the fight. 0-4-3 on the Kali, and we wondered if there would be a heavy emphasis on keeping that Kali alive. Didn't end up happening all that much. 17,000 damage for the mid of the Wargs. Everything else going the way of the Xibalba Storm. So a high impact, as I've mentioned, game number 3. The 3-game set we got earlier on today on the winner side of the bracket, not quite as hefty, and now we move on into this one here, Ro, and so this is where you really have to put your best foot forward, right? You've gotten a little look at game 1, game 2 goes by the wayside. Picks and bans for game number 3 at an all-time high for the Xibalba Storm versus the Niflheim Wargs. That'll put the Wargs over in that first pick slot, looking similar to how things were for game number 1. And if I remember correctly, game 1 was a Chernobog ban, an Uller ban, things like that all taken away.
Yeah, and then they went to, I think, the first pick Umoja. But I thought one thing I wanted to highlight, and they're doing it again this game, Storm, you know, taking away those junglers, and I think it was the Basta and, was it the Humbats as well they took away? The ones that they really struggled with, and the ones that snowballed onto Ozzy. So they're taking those away again. They don't want to play into the Umoja again. Baron now off the table, so it's been pretty dominant both games. Well, it would have been dominant in that game if the Wargs didn't shut it down. So a big part of this meta regardless.
Yeah, a slight switch up from when Wargs were in first pick in game number 1. Still the Chernobog ban, but Uller and Kleedna were the other 2 bans for the Wargs. Kleedna still banned out, but by the Storm this time. Mercury remains unbanned, was banned in game number 1. And Jingwei was a notable ban for the Storm in game 1 as well, and in game 2. And now for the first time this set, Jingwei left open. This is something the Storm have to realize is coming, right? Jingwei is so highly prioritized. You leave it open, you have to assume the Wargs are going to take it.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent as well. It's also just smart stuff by Wargs as well. They leave the Baron ban to second. You know, they're like, you know what? They're going to ban our counters into it anyway. If we let them, if we show that we want to first pick Baron, for example, they're going to ban out the Humbats and ban out the Bastet. Or if we want to give them Baron, you know, we're not going to have the counters into it. So instead, they let them waste their bans. They don't want to play into Umoja again. Nobody wants to play into Kleedna, and they ban the Humbats again. So they have the Jingwei open for them.
Yeah, Jingwei, strong pick for the Wargs. Nike,
Trust
seen 1 pick already in this set. 100% win rate, right? Hard to argue against that through the 1 game, of course. And another first pick here for this weekend in the Hachiman. we've seen a variety of Hunter picks. Hachiman unpicked up to this point. Do you think he's able to slot into the meta, some of the current strengthy
sure.
builds in ADC?
Yeah, it looks like Storm are just drafting again, like what's similar to what they did last game, where they just want to get in there, let's play the game, let's fight. We are more confident in our team fight, not only our team fight, but our brawl as well. So the smaller 2v2, 3v3s, and 4v4s. We're not going to wait until the end game. You know, something that Hachiman is great at, a lot of consistent damage. He can fight often because all he really needs is his dash and his 2 in order to engage. He doesn't always need his ultimate. Nike, a lot of poke, she can go in and out as well, so she's a safe bet for brawls too.
Absolutely, and looked good for the Storm there in game number 2. And now with the Jingwei, you've already, filled a big need if you're the Wargs here, especially later on in these games. We've set kind of 35 minutes as the benchmark for most of the matches that we've seen here today. By that point, Jingwei is absolutely swinging.
She is.
And so the Wargs have given themselves a late game option as far as winning some of these later on fights. Mercury, again, has been a ban priority for a couple of the teams so far here, not only this weekend, but in this set specifically. Mercury has been banned out plenty. 100% win rate, but again, only across a couple of games. And we're going full-on late game here, Ro. We got Jingwei, Mercury, and Baba Yaga all slotted in for the Wargs.
I'm seeing another high win rate god, right? They're just going statistically, we should win this game.
Right, we're going purely from the win rate column.
Yeah, I mean, it works for them. I mean, Baba Yaga's been working all day, really, hasn't it? So
it has.
You can't really falter that.
Zero's fault.
Yeah, it is. You can't, I don't think Nike can do too much to stop a Baba Yaga from doing damage. She can tank it to a certain extent, but she isn't going to stop it from coming out.
Yeah, and now, all right, so if you're the Storm, you see a Jingwei, a Mercury, a Baba Yaga on the flip side. You've got Hachiman and Nike. Are you, and now a thought for your team. Do you feel like you need to draft to contend later on in the game because of how those picks are, or do you feel like you need to now say, all right, their weakest point is early, let's see if we can get the ball rolling early? I suppose that's maybe team dependent how you want to play these games. What might be the Storm strategy here to answer back these
Sure, it might
three?
be team dependent, but also it comes down to momentum as well. Storm just won that game. Let's not rest and wait until the end game, and fight their late game team comp and build a late game team comp of ours. Let's just get in there and try to beat them in the early game, which is what it looks like they're drafting so far. I talked about how they have the good brawl so far. Thoth has that brawl potential as well.
I have to imagine now, as we already see, Magic Feet will take a couple of bans later on in this ban phase as Kali taken away. Bastet banned out by the Storm as well. So that would be a very strong solo lane pick had the Wargs been able to pick that one up for their side. I would assume another ban centered around Magic Feet maybe up to this point. Osiris is still around, and that's been banned out against Magic Feet 66% of the time, to be exact.
I will say Baba Yaga has a decent matchup into the Osiris, and maybe they want to forget that one and look towards the Darji, but no, they don't. So ban Bakasura away, Magic Feet's got plenty of options available to him now. The
Does he?
Darji
I mean,
well.
The Hunbat's taken away. Now, to your point, he's a good enough player that he has plenty of options. But the Wargs are digging deep here. Mercury off the table because of the pick, and then Baka and Kali banned out. Bastet, Kleedna, Hunbat's all banned by the Storm.
This is getting familiar. It looks like they've just left him to draft his god later in the team
and he's
comp every
picking
time.
late in the draft.
He seems fine with it. It didn't go great in the first game, I must say, but the second game, he picks Darji into a double cleanse comp and still makes it work. Maybe he can slam it again. He's not pulling a Baba Yaga or a Jingwei very often, but he is immuning those knockups, so that's great.
Yeah, we cry for Magic Feet here, but he's probably doing just fine, realizing that his god pool is also just fine, where it can apparently eat 5 or 6 picks and bans and still have plenty of variety.
That's value.
Yeah, honestly, at some point it's just, look, I wasn't gonna play any of these guys anyway. Little did you know, I was picking something else. As the E-set is something else. We have seen a ban or 2 sent E-set's way so far this weekend, but no picks just yet. One of the strongest picks coming out of the end of the first phase of the SPO and the SEC, largely in that support role alongside things like the Nox. Do you think there's still some value here for the E-set in 9.5?
Yeah, I think put her in support again. I'm surprised we haven't seen her so far. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe she has fallen out of contention a little bit. But, I don't see any weaknesses against the enemy team comp. I think the damage is pretty predictable. They should be able to get the E-set ult down. You should be able to protect your Hachiman and your Thoth, and then you can slowly win a team fight with that brawl potential and poke potential.
There's no way that the Storm should ever be out secured on an objective, right? I mean, between a final judgment
I would agree. Yeah.
and a circle of protection.
You might get a lucky major look, maybe a 1,000 crit from Mercury.
Now, here's the
perhaps.
problem: is I've said that now, and I've willed it into existence, and it's going to be the game-changing Fire Giant Steel out confirming a final judgment and a circle of protection. A pick again that we saw towards the end of the first phase of both the SEC and the SPL. The aggressive, in-your-face style of pick in King Arthur was pretty popular, and it'll finalize the draft here for the Wargs.
I can't say I like this King Arthur too much.
Oh, you're not a fan?
No, we've seen it once. We saw it yesterday, I think, in the first game of the day, and it did not have a good time, and it's definitely not going to have an easy time against an East set. You know, it's got the silence, the stun, and then when their carries are still really in danger, you can just drop the big ultimate and save them, no problem. He's also going to get, going on by this Daji as well, so look, I'm not surprised to see Magic Feet back on the
Yeah,
Daji.
good point.
You got the knock-up immunity against the Baba Yaga ult, the Jingwei, you got the CC immunity and the dash away from the Ymir wall and things like that. So all-around good pick, even though it's not a super high value. It's just a safe, even round pick.
Yeah, and when Magic Feet has already taken
That's right.
like 5 or 6 other picks and bans
And
throughout
he's
the
warmed
rest of
up
the
on
draft.
that god too. So.
Feeling just fine going into game number 3. The final draft of this best-of-3 set now locked in. Nike, Hachiman, Thoth, E-Set, and Daji for the Storm. Early on in the draft, when we saw Jingwei, Mercury, and Baba Yaga, we said, all right, the Storm, they're going to maybe try to draft something a little bit more aggressive, run over the Wargs, grab some of that momentum. Do you think the rest of the draft has filled out in that sort of way? Do you think the Storm can get active early?
I think they can now, but it's kind of evened out on both sides. Wargs actually picked up a couple early game gods in Ymir and King Arthur. And then E-Set and Daji are kind of like scaling, but they can also brawl. So I think, things are even, and we might just see a lot more action this game.
I think the jungle matchup, sneaky, very fun here because the playmaking style of Daji and Mercury feel similar, but through different avenues.
Yep.
The big sonic boom as far as ganks go. You have a Mercury on your team. Level 5 gets hit. Do you feel like you need to see some lane pressure? You need to see that sonic boom used across the map?
Yeah, I mean, the pressure's on, though. You got to be making those plays at this point. It's you got to win at this point. It's the end of the best of 3. You want to move into the rest of the day or you want to go home. It's your choice, so make your move. As well, though, if things calm down, you could, start doing Sino-esque plays where, well, they've given us some space. Let's call an objective. I've got this Mercury DPS on my side, so we can burn an objective real quick and take over the game that way.
Yeah, my philosophy is you don't want to hope the other team makes some sort of mistake, right? You want to be able to take the game in your control, get the ball rolling in your favor, and force mistakes out of the enemy team, especially when you've got playmaking style of pick like the Mercury has here. One more game between the Wargs and the Storm. These two teams have not shied away from lengthier games up to this point. Do you lean one way or another going into game 3 here?
I think it's close, but I will give it to Storm. I think the draft is slightly better, but also they've got the momentum in. And momentum in a long day is even more important.
Absolutely. And the Storm will have to continue that momentum into their next set here as well. We have had some lengthy games in this best of 3, but it all ends here. Storm versus Wargs, game number 3.
And that means that one team is going to be going home, and then one team is going to be moving on for another best of 3 set after this. So it's not the end of the road for both teams. Still a long trek ahead for one of these guys to qualify to day number 3 of play. It's J-Mac and Trelly one more time here in game number 3. Xibalba Storm going back to the Nike and the Daji that worked so well for them in game number 2. Magic Feet eating, 5 or 6 different bans total and still managed to get the god that he kind of popped off with a little bit last game. A little questionable there for me, Trelly.
Well, Magic Feet's got the deep god pool, so if you're going to ban out everything, he's going to find a way to pick something. But you're right to say that it could have been something you wanted to ban away. And this point, you lose both of your cleanses as well, but you also pick all characters that have CC immunity built into the kit. Preds is going to try to invade this purple buff, and it's going to be spotted away immediately, so not going to be able to do that. Invader's Curse is on the Ymir right now, and won't be able to steal that one away, so we could be looking at a chase down opportunity, but Ymir is going to be very tanky. I think this will just be a attempted invade as Spudio just solos the purple buff of his own.
He was so slow trying to walk through the jungle between the curse and just the fact that Ymir's also like one of the slowest gods in the game. Always amusing watching people be afflicted by the Invader's Curse just because not going to say it's pathetic, but it's kind of pathetic just watching them waddle so slowly through the jungle to try and find a way back out. You know what? I didn't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. It looked a little pathetic, but it was funny to me.
Yeah, I understand. I had a good time, too. I mean, trying to get some sort of action. Obviously, he was able to work out in the earlier set, but fool me once, shame on you. They're not going to get fooled a second time, so they're going to be able to get that buff. It looks like we're going to see a little bit of aggression in this mid lane, but Magic Feet learned his lesson from last game as well. Not going to start with the blink, going to go for the beads, recognizes there's a fair bit of CC, and Preds has the blink this time around, so a blink Ymir freeze would be pretty detrimental. You don't want to get stunned into place right now, so lots of beads, lots of respect on the CC on both of these squads, but notably, it looks like Hana goes for the beads, whereas Uzi has the teleport, so we can expect to see a little bit more aggression out of Uzi, because you can just back up, essentially get a second health bar, or upgrade that teleport and start making your rotations along the map a little bit earlier.
Preds does find a decent freeze up against Oceans and the minion wave more than anything else there, but maybe some of the struggles of that side of the map. Sarpei dashes away, but his dash will be far enough. No further follow-up from Magic Feet and Joshi to push back towards enemy territory at the very least. Will not continue that chase in the jungle, so Sarpei will get out. Doesn't even have to use a relic to get out of that fight.
We are going to see what I can only assume is going to be the Golden Blade start for Sarpei. We love seeing the Golden Blade on the Mercury. Brings me back to the old Golden Bow days when you could get the crit and stuff like that. But still, fast, clear, be able to get out. Oceans taking a fair bit of damage. We'll CC.
It does have the shell, though. That's going to buy a little bit of extra time. Good stun by Zen should be enough to allow Oceans to make their way out of there. But that's a lot expended to try and grab that one. Shell now on cooldown. Oceans losing out on some of that safety factor. But now you can see some of the potency of the CC that this duo lane has.
Yeah, a fair bit of potions with the health pots and the multi-pot, so I don't think Oceans is going to be in too much danger there. Losing the shell is going to be a big hit, so maybe Sarpei can try and get active on that side of the map. Right now, though, just sort of sticking the middle, going to speed buff, going back to lane, getting your backs, going back to lane, that sort of thing. And Magic Feet also following suit, trying to stick around the mid lane. Preds is trying to steal away a purple buff for the second time. This time, Invader's Curse isn't going to stop him, but Magic Feet might.
But he used his blink, and so now he doesn't have a way to get out. Does find a double freeze. Is the wall available for Preds? It doesn't matter. He's slowed down, and the flaps through from the support. Preds gets locked down and shut down. Magic Feet on the board first for the Xibalba Storm.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, if you don't have eyes on the jungle, I don't see that play ever being worth it. Even if you do have eyes on the jungle, could have been a problem blinking into that purple either way. Great answer back, and I think that kill, besides maybe on Joshi, that's one of the best players to have it on right now. Magic Feet is able to use that first blood bounty and assert some of that dominance on the other side of the map. Maybe look towards Scylla. Remember, Kana has the beat, so trying to get that down early, maybe use your gold to your advantage, finish some items, and try and get a kill over there could be an option. Magic Feet, though, doesn't have that ultimate, whereas Sarpei has Sonic Boom right now and looks like going to be charging from behind that tower.
Is walking towards the right side, but do they have enough damage to kill Uzi is the question. Kana's ult available, Sonic Boom charged up. Sarpei needs the distance, but will not elect to push in towards that tower. You can see Uzi maybe expecting it. He said, this tower is my only lifeline. I'm going to use it more than just the fire shots. I'm going to use it to try and block this ult. Will he find the block here? Sonic Boom charge up under the tower and doesn't even need the help of Kana to get that one. An easy kill for Sarpei.
Yeah, if Uzi pre-ults that, sitting just fine, but unfortunately, when you've been here this long, Uzi's reaction time isn't going to be the best. I think recognize that the ult's probably coming by the way you mentioned, positioning behind that tower, but probably didn't expect the gank re-gank, where you sort of go for the ult and then say, I'm not going to go for it, just kidding. Goes for a beautiful play by Sarpei to answer back, and now a kill on both of these junglers. Golden Blade and Transcendence. A little bit better to get that Transcendence online early to get it stacked, but Golden Blade is going to make sure that Sarpei can clear extremely fast, get those AoE autos, but miss your speed buff in the process.
You gotta pick that speed buff up. Very important, especially for a god like Mercury to make sure to grab that one out, but it will be that Golden Blade. And then the Sonogaya picked up by Kana, and we've been seeing popularized, at least just for King Arthur. Outside of King Arthur, we have not really seen this item picked up by solo laners.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to be right into Sovereignty, just trying to get as much HP 5 as possible. All these solo laners, they miss the glory days of Glad Shield King Arthur, and they say, hey, I want to be healing a lot, and, you know, Sovereignty and Stone of Guy will do just that. So I imagine that's where Kana is trying to go with that build. If you look at Angry, not going for the Charon's coin this time, going to be going into that Warlock staff and just finished it up. Baba Yaga going to be stacking that pretty quickly.
It's kind of like the mom, I need Glad Shield. We have Glad Shield at home. The Glad Shield at home takes 2 items to get it back there. Kana will take a little bit of time before he's able to get those 2 items fully online, but still keeping Uzi consistently pushed under this tier 1 tower. Uzi, ever since like wave, 2, 3 maybe, has not been able to step foot out of the Tier 1 tower.
Yeah, completely different matchup from last game, but looks like Magic Feet finding a... Nope, not going to find anything on Spadio. Once the dash away, that's going to be the end of the aggression, but the Chalice will be stolen away, so at least a little bit Obelisk offering will be just enough to make the trip a little bit worth it. I'm not going to say completely worth it, but it looks like Sarpe is trying to steal away the Scorpion, and that will go down. So that's going to be a little bit more value, I would say. If you're looking at the gold lead, relatively even, a little bit more towards the Wargs at the moment. So that first blood bounty largely negated.
Just leave Uzi alone, man. They keep bullying Uzi on the side of the Wargs. They were constantly over on this right side of the map. They're constantly pushing up these blue buffs and stealing them away. Sarpe, credit to that one, but it may cost Preds his life to do so. Slowed down, but a good wall will block 2 away, but can't block the pal out. Quick ultimate response by Preds to get himself out, but he's slowed down to all hell and back. He will not make it away from the circle of protection, and Kana even falling low during a final judgment will slam through, but just barely. Clip through Sarpe under the tower, not going to be safe enough. Uzi turns around to get the kill. Now that Angry has rotated in, can he find a follow-up kill? The answer there is no. Xibalba Storm pick up 2.
That was a great flick, trying to make sure to hit that final judgment, but Sarpe was not taking the risk and did ult out. Still gets chased down, though, because Magic Feet was not afraid of these upgraded towers. Still was able to dive that one pretty effectively. You touched on the fact that they were bullying Uzi, and I think that's because in the first game of the Baron, Uzi got pretty sad on and wasn't able to do much. They found success that way. Then last game, Uzi just is against the Geb and can go like Transcendence and have no sort of pressure at all and just run lane and rotate in. Now you're up against King Arthur, who wants to brawl with you, so you can't really build this full damage and get away scot-free. But when the whole team rotates over and says, don't talk to me or my son ever again, you're going to have some trouble.
They're going to try and get some answers back against Kana. Magic Feet is running as fast as his little legs will take him to try and catch up and be a part of that action, but Kana's just a little too far away. Will get some of that healing back. Takes the help that Stone Gaia passive. Greater Scorpion will be shredded away instantly by the Niflheim Wargs. And even despite the fact that the Xibalba Storm have the kill lead, the gold is very slightly in favor of Niflheim Wargs. Experience the same department. 1200 XP, about 200 gold.
Yeah, they were playing the farm game pretty well, and I think Angry stayed a little bit far behind and pushed some waves also. It looks like Uzi, that gank is the one that's really holding them back right now. The level lead and the fact that just Transcendence is online, it's not going to be the biggest deal right now. I don't think that they were able to find any sort of kills on Akana anytime soon. The Sovereignty still not built yet, just the Stone of Gaia, and very tanky target with beads is the point I'm trying to make here. Kana doesn't have to fear the Palau at the moment, but Sarpe still showing some face in that lane just in case. We saw for a minute, it looked like maybe the mages from the mid lane were going to help out over on that right side, but Joshi and Oceans thought better of it and go back to farm.
Gotta feel good for Angry, especially just as a Baba Yaga in general, to get what's basically a pre-9-minute fully stacked up Warlock staff. Gotta be a great feeling on his part, getting all that extra HP online, all that extra damage, the percent pen that comes with it. Sarpe again on this right side trying to get some pressure against Uzi, but again, Uzi kind of spotting it out. Whatever way he may be noticing that's happening, will stand behind the tower yet again to keep away from it.
Yeah, Uzi does not have any sort of CC immunity besides the ult, though. So if Kana does go for the ult and try and hold him in place, a Sonic Boom into the grab would be enough to confirm that kill before Sentinel of Zeus gets off. Uzi has to be very careful, and that's the reason you're seeing him behind the tower. Oceans trying to steal away the purple buff, and no, that's a full tank, he said. It's not going to do too much.
He's doing like negative. I'm pretty sure he's healing the camp at this point with how little that he's doing. Uzi jumps in place under the tower. Kana will eat a few tower shots, and that's going to put him a bit low. Preds on the left-hand side will find a double freeze. Maybe the wall or at least an ultimate to slow them down for the double Sonic Boom out of Sarpe. That gets the Palau and the Circle of Protection. 3 people grab it, only 1 gets pulled in, and it's Preds who pays at the end of it. Send credit to the kill. Spadio now caught out. Use the airstrike to find Magic Feet all the way. And it's a 1-for-1 trade out with maybe more as Sarpe and Angry continue to close gap. But in the 3v2, doesn't seem that that's the fight they want to take. Sarpe, okay, wise choice, walk away.
Sarpe, okay, get away from the purple buff and maybe invade the red buff because the spawn timer is not going to be enough. Joshi has the invade and punish and will be able to confirm that red buff, but Sarpe is a very fast Merc with the speed buff, so will be able to zoom on out of there. A great fight in the left lane. You start off with saying, hey, Prez use the ultimate, we can pull him back in, but you get also the shutdown kill on the Magic Feet, so that's going to be worth a fair bit. Shutting down the 1-0 jungler, so not going to get too much gold for that, but at least trying to stop some of this aggression from the Daji. I think right now you have to watch out for Angry. Started farming in that mid lane, got the full Warlocks, but is now rotating over to help the team. This Baba Yaga is starting to do some solid damage numbers in these fights. And Spudio got the kill as well. Getting a kill on a Jingwei, that's going to help out.
We're running at a much faster pace this game as far as kills are concerned, though. It was 19-ish minutes before we saw 7 kills pop up. Hey, we're 11 minutes and we're already at 6, so they're definitely moving a bit quicker this game, but at least for one of these two teams, this is only one of at least 3 games that have to be played in order to qualify towards tomorrow. Niflheim Wargs establishing pressure up against this Greater Scorpion. Uzi here just to be a nuisance more than anything else, but this is not quite the objective to really fight and brawl over, especially with Joshi down to half health in that mid lane.
That's just 2 of the Baba potions. That's all that was to poke Joshi down. It takes so much damage, and Angry vastly unaffected. Pretty much just standing there, getting a little bit of passive healing from the house whenever he needs it, and besides that, stacking up this Charon's coin. So 1 item already done stacking the Warlocks. Charon's coin is on the way. I'm telling you, if you're looking at Baba Yaga, you got to keep your eyes on Baba Yaga during these fights because the damage numbers are really going to start flying out. Focusing out the tanks, it's not going to work much longer.
You have a small group up on this left-hand side of the jungle. Gold Fury not going to be the eye of target for the Niflheim Wargs, at least not yet. Instead, it'll just be the Oracle Harpies to give them that vision around the pit. Sarpe, who started with the Golden Blade, now morphing in towards another katana with that stone-cutting sword picked up. So a little bit of extra prot shred by the way of this Mercury. The Xibalba Storm are really setting up a lot of aggressive wards around this Fury pit.
And it looks like Kana is going to build the Glad Shield. So wanting the glory days of the HP 5 from Glad Shield, get Stone of Gaia, and then simply build Glad Shield. And there you go. It's just like old Glad Shield, except costs a bunch more.
This is like Dollar Tree Glad Shield comparatively. Come on now.
Yeah, this isn't even the Sovereignty and Stone of Gaia Glad Shield. This is simply just some HP, and it's going to give some protection and extra damage on your abilities. Uzi, though, trying to find some aggression, but you're just popping that Gaia. You're going to be healing up very quickly once you get knocked up. Kana isn't going to be fearing this aggression too much at all. Gold Fury is available. Obviously, the Oracles went the way of the Wargs, but Xibalba Storm have it warded, so no pulls are going to be happening anytime soon.
Ocean's actually just broke his ankle by stop moving, but he should still go down here no matter what. But that was actually a pretty funny play by Oceans. I don't know if that was intentional or not, the fact that he literally just dead stopped in place. But I got to say, it was at least entertaining.
Yeah, he probably just had to scratch his nose or something. Like, oh, Merkel, what happened there? But unfortunately,
where'd you come from?
That was a great wall by Preds. I'm pretty sure 9 out of 10 times, if that wall doesn't go down perfectly, Ocean is able to heal up and just sort of zoom on out of there with the Wing Gust movement speed, but beautiful wall locks him in place. The healing wasn't enough, and the CC chain was certainly there. So although the ult missed, the wall from Pred saying, hey, no worries, I got your back. Still, though, even with a pick, not feeling confident enough to pull this Gold Fury, and Magic Feet has been vastly inactive since that death came down. Level 12 and, you know, about to get the second relic. Hasn't been looking for too many Palos recently.
Look what Preds has picked up. Second item here, Wingblade, to deal with all the slows coming out from the opposition between Uzi's ultimate, Ocean's just with that silence, and then Joshi, if he managed to be the second one, at least on Preds' side, to be hit by that root. And even Magic Feet in that first ability. So a lot of slows to deal with here for the side of the Niflheim Wargs support going up against the Storm. Angry level 14, 5 stacks now on the Charon's coin will make sure that he will be that much closer to having that fully stacked up. And Niflheim Wargs still sitting very small lead, to say the very least.
You want to talk about an annoying build. Second item, Ethereal Staff. As we see, the Pyromancer is being pulled. The second Pred spots this out. Gold Fury might be looked up on the left side, but it looks like no one's ready for it. Kana blinks in.
Kana's going to go in there and stop this Pyromancer from going down. Uzi chunked down to half HP, already having to back himself away from that fight. Does have that sovereignty, so has a little bit of stain to his name, while the Wargs can re-initiate on the Pyromancer. That one may not go down as swiftly as they would hope so, or as cleanly. Will need the support of their mid laner to confirm that objective. Niflheim Wargs grab the Pyromancer, and they walk themselves out.
Yeah, nothing else to fight over at this point. The Pyromancer goes down. No one's really swinging Fire Giant numbers, and you don't have any sort of ultimate lead or relics down. So just going to back up there and go back to the farm game. It looks like the Trebuchet will be spawning on the left side of the Xibalba Storm. They will be able to look for something, but Sarpe's here for Uzi.
Kana will tank up this tower so that Sarpe can try and knock it down, but with that ultimate out of Uzi, that will clear out the wave. And make sure that's going to be a little bit harder to clear out the tier 1. So Uzi and his tower live a little longer. Preds, maybe not, are the same for Oceans. Pops a very early circle of protection, preemptively waiting for the onslaught that came after. Instead, it's just a couple of ultimate shots out of Angry and a trade out of a 1-for-1 ult.
Yeah, but In My Zen did make the rotation over, and Spudio is nowhere in sight. The wraparound could be happening here, but it looks like they got the call back to just say, hey, go back and farm. If you look, that's a level 16 Jingwei. You're losing farm just being here, and we don't really have anything to fight over. Uzi teleports over to Gold Fury, though, and I don't see anyone from the Wargs that can get here in time.
Everybody's to the right-hand side of the map. Gold Fury should go to the Xibalba Storm, but Spudio is here, left side. One chance to steal this one away. Will not do so, but he will get some good damage up against Uzi. Spudio continues to chase because he's got Preds right behind. Can Preds find the initiation with a wall? No, he will not. I thought maybe this Ymir would try and get the blink in to cut off a couple of players, but instead it'll just be objective going to the Storm.
One chance Spudio had, one moment to give everything he ever wanted, and he let it slip. He didn't get the gold here, so no option there
No
to
mom
steal that
spaghetti
one
for
away.
him.
Yeah, unfortunately, the gold is still in the Wargs' favor, so not going to be too worried about that one. And you have a level 17 Jingwei already working on the Envenom Deathbringer, so not going to be looking too bad if you are a Wargs fan. You have a few different options here. Preds, though, is going to be slowed down. The Wingblade proc is not available.
But Magic Feet has to use the Powwow to try and confirm this kill. Will not pull either Preds or Angry, but does get the beads from the mid laner. So Angry going to be a little bit less safe on this Baba Yaga. Does still have the ultimate up, but those beads being burned away means Angry's going to be a little bit more careful.
Yeah, that's the first time this whole game I've seen like a beads down on Angry where I'm like, maybe they could look aggressive towards the Baba Yaga. There's been a few different kill options, but I've never seen Angry in a bad position this game. Still not, obviously. Having Home Sweet Home and Aegis is going to be enough to get you out of most situations. You'll just have to have your finger on the 4 key if you're trying to ult immediately after the Powwow goes down. A quick pull could catch you out a little bit. But if you're looking at the build still, we see the Sundering Spear comes through for Preds once again, trying to counter the shield from Uzi. It's going to vastly stop the dive in the back lane if it gets off effectively, but it was the option last game, and we didn't see it hurt Uzi too much. But this is a Ymir, not a Khepri, so maybe a little bit more aggressive will also make this Sunder worth its weight in gold.
I can't even think if it got used last game. Can you even recall a moment where the Sunder got...
Now, the Sundering Siphon certainly didn't get used, but I think maybe throwing out just the regular Sunder. I mean, I can't recall an actual moment where it got used, but Sarpei, nope. I was going to say maybe looking to find a gank onto Uzi, but not going to be going for it at the moment. Still trying to farm up here.
Preds in the mid lane, level 12, so it does have access to both of his relics. As talked about, the Sunder and the Blink picked up for the support, so we'll see maybe if Preds gets a little bit of value out of the Sunder this time around to try and put a damper on Uzi's shields, or maybe some of the shields that Oceans can provide from that third ability of their own. Preds and Angry grouping up in mid. A 2-level lead for Angry at that, which is impressive to say considering that it's not like he's getting a ton of kills. He's only sitting at 1-0-1, just the farm game of this Wargs mid laner.
You said put a damper on Uzi's shield, and I know you didn't mean for this, but the sigils affect this dampening. Hold that thought in my Zen. Gets hit by the Sonic Boom.
I hate you for that one.
I was trying.
That was so good, but I'm so mad that you stuck that one in.
I mean, I was trying to find the connection because you said dampening, and I was like, sigil. You gain a stack of dampening for a damage. I mean, I'm just looking for word association now, but beautiful ult there by Sarpei, making sure to grab the beads of In My Zen. Now, you're going to have to wait on that cavalry anytime you're about to get CC'd. If Sarpei does come back around with the Sonic Boom, one ult is going to make sure that you get pretty much 100-0 right now. Take a look at that build. A fair bit of crit already, but working on a Deathbringer, so Spectral Armor, I imagine, is going to be bought by most of the tanks on Xibalba Storm.
Magic Feet might be in danger. A good wall by Preds will force out a Powwow from the jungle. That will save him from losing out on his bubble. Still on landing, will drop that one away. Does get the Home Sweet Home out of the mid laner. Uzi still pushing forward. But Preds will be fine, and so will the rest of the Wargs. They can reset themselves and get ready for the next fight.
This time, though, Spudio did make the rotation, and In My Zen didn't, so the ADC value is on the side of the Wargs. They will be able to get that tower down, and a good wall by Preds catches Josh's dash.
There's no dash for Josh anymore. Does throw out that evade and punish right back at Preds to root him out. Charging that final judgment, fires it off, but doesn't get any value from it at all. Kana will be able to waltz his way right back out. Magic Feet in the fight. And this is someone where you got to turn this one around, but Kana picks up one and keeps Preds alive. Meanwhile, this very healthy, this very tanky King Arthur will be fine, but keep sights on Sarpei, who's looping back around in the fight. Angry stunned out by Zen. Angry should go down here, but he hasn't fallen yet. The Spirit Ball, not enough damage. Spadio turns it around to find Joshi, Oceans, and Uzi thrown into the midst of the tower, and Kana will swing away on the Beyblade to take out Oceans. Uzi jumps out, but that should be the end of the fight unless Spadio really wants to get those big crits and those big charges forward.
It looks like Uzi will be following here. Great dash by Sarpei. And my Zen had such a great wraparound, and I was like, oh, wow, they catch him out. This is such a good fight for the Storm. And then you see Sonic Boom come down, and Sarpei just absolutely destroys that fight. What would have been a pretty solid grab for the Xibalba Storm just turns into the Wargs running away, and now probably being able to set up for this Oni Fury. It is up here shortly. You don't have anyone really close. Zen is grabbing some farm on the right side of the map, and Magic Feet is level 16, so probably doesn't want to go and try and 50-50 for an Oni Fury.
Level 16 versus 20 at that, with Sarpei maxing out on his level. And by grabbing this Oni Fury, a little bit of extra gold in pocket to get himself that much closer to finishing out that starter item. Niflheim Wargs with a 5,000 gold lead here, 22 minutes in, the largest lead that we have had this game. And not just the 5K gold, that 10K experience that they've been able to amass as well has really put them in the comfortable spot moving towards this Fire Giant.
Already Ornate Arrow and Deathbringer finish for Spadio. Sarpei also ticks over and gets that Deathbringer as well. So we don't see those Spectral Armors quite finished yet. Uzi, tier 2 available, but doesn't have the anti-crit just yet. So taking the full brunt of damage from not only the ADC, but the jungler as well. And we've seen these massive ults from Sarpei. And we've seen the ganks, but the team fight ults have been even more impactful.
Fire Giant started up by the Wargs, who on the Storm is gonna find the path to get in and slow this down. Magic Feet will eat a big potion toss out of this Baba Yaga. Angry with his damage numbers are starting to slowly climb up this chart now, as his items are beginning to come online. Four-man grouping of the Storm on a retreat away from the Wargs.
That was a really risky pathing. All four members.
What is that? What is happening on this left side of the map? The trebuchets are shooting each other.
It was a little trebuchet battle. This is why it's risky. You're going into a corner against a Ymir.
You don't want to fight in the Fire Giant behind that wall. Circle of Protection is down. Sarpei versus Magic Feet is not going well for Sarpei. Has that Sonic Boom, but used the beads instead. Preds holds them back with the wall, and the fight has reset for both these teams, although a few healthier members on the side of the Xibalba Storm.
Yeah, why does it look like the Xibalba Storm actually kind of won that fight, even though the Wargs have such a massive lead? I think Magic Feet going up into the Palau and getting a fair bit of damage onto Sarpei and the beads was enough to just stop that fight for a bit. The Trebuchet v Trebuchet battle, it's very clear which one won, because now there's an Oni minion on this tier 2, an Oni wave, I should say, on this tier 2. That tower is definitely going down. I don't even think Magic Feet is able to save that one, but look at the Fire Giant being pulled once again by the Wargs.
Fire Giant started up for 5 versus 3, really, because Joshi has no way in, no final judgment to steal this one out. It's just going to come down to a lucky steal by the Storm, or maybe just a better fight by the Wargs. In my Zen picked up, thrown back, and thrown into the ground. Kana grabs 1, Kana grabs 2 with the double kill. Spadio batting away at Uzi's health bar. The jump and the wall even better. Gonna force the blink out of the Nike, and the Niflheim Wargs can now reset for fire.
Joshi thought he could sneak in and try to get an ult off, but gets caught out immediately. Grab and see you later. Now Magic Feet, I was going to say, are you guys really going to go in like dominoes and die 1v1v1? Not going to be the option. It looks like Uzi will go back, and Magic Feet will make the smart play and try to get some farm. Easy Fire Giant for the Wargs. Beautiful wraparound. All of that happened because Sarpei takes the long con around mid camps and then just starts autoing in my Zen from behind, critting massively. If you don't expect a Mercury from behind, I mean, no one does. You expect the Sonic Boom maybe, but just the wraparound and the big crit autos was enough to make sure you get the double pick onto Oceans and Zen there.
5 versus 3 now on the right side of the map. This Phoenix is going to be poked away very quickly once those minions show up. But it doesn't seem that the Wargs really want to contend to this right bird. Instead, there are 2 towers left. 1 tier 2 in mid, 1 in the duo lane. The Wargs will retreat from the right side Phoenix.
Yeah, and my Zen was responding just then, and now Joshi has arrived as well. I think they probably could have taken that. They have the lead, they have the Fire Giant, but not the smartest call. We've already mentioned that. If they win this, they just get to stop playing for the day. And that's going to be what you want to see. They want to make sure that they get this win in the bank and they don't have to worry about it. So the Wargs playing extremely safe here, trying to make sure every play is very calculated.
It's going to be a very tough loss for either of these two teams, realistically. I mean, you made it all the way into this elimination match, and now you are one game away, one team fight away from potentially losing out and being sent home on only day 2 of our 2-week Masters event. A lot on the line for the Xibalba Storm. The Wargs, with a nice lead so far, have a little bit of wiggle room, even if this team fight doesn't go their way. They'll start their push on this left side.
They have a lot of ways to try and just wall off the team with a quite literal wall, with Preds just putting up the ice wall there. There's no Phantom Shell available right now, about 15-second on Ocean, so they did try to go in there. They would be able to get use of that, but it looks like they're not going to walk up just yet because Sarpe is pushing down mid.
Sarpe does get the mid tier 2. Now it's only Phoenixes left for the Wargs to continue pushing down the last lines of defense for the Xibalba Storm to hold out and keep themselves alive. And you don't want to make any mistakes at this point. This has to be pristine play out of the Xibalba Storm to keep themselves not just alive, but to give themselves a second win in this game.
Yeah, baiting out the circle of protection is going to be pretty solid here. If you can get that down and just say, all right, we'll reset, and then we'll come back in. You always have to watch out for Joshy's long-range poke, though. The E-Staff procs are going to start to add up. The longer this Phoenix Siege takes, the more that Hieroglyphic Assault is just going to start ticking and ticking away, giving the HP to you and stealing it away from the enemy. So you got to watch out for this Thought's artillery damage, but with the lead that the Wargs have accrued here, it's going to be very hard to get wiped. They might just, try and get this Phoenix very slowly, but again, they're playing as calculated as possible.
But it is important that you do point out that you have to keep your eyes on the Thoth, even though those final judgments haven't been able to find a whole lot of success in the team fights just yet, even though they haven't been finding that big damage. There's still an opportunity. There's still a way for them to get back in. A 4-1 split between both of these two teams, with the junglers, the ones over in the mid. Sarpe can get over as quickly as needed with the help of that Sonic Boom. The Wargs, though, just waiting patiently for that minion wave to arrive.
Yeah, it seems like they're just going to be sitting back and waiting for a mistake to happen. Just one misstep, someone stepping up too long and getting walled. Preds looks like he found a wall there, but it will be dashed away by Zen, and he takes a lot of damage.
He's already down to half HP. Uzi also eating a lot in the backline. Kana finds the initiation, gets the ultimate out of Uzi, who is having his life leached away by Preds as he attacks that Sunder through. Uzi does manage to find a way out, but the low health bars on the side of the Wargs means that they are not going to be able to fully continue back in. Pao Lao does not find Sarpe. The Sonic Boom charge and immediately canceled as a disengage comes from the Wargs.
And it looks like the Xibalba Storm will be able to come mid and help out Magic Feet in that 1v1, so no Phoenix is really under any danger right now. It looked like the final judgment was pretty close. Buddy Oegas did away, but now left Phoenix is being looked at, and it's just the carries.
A lot of damage coming out of Angry, though. They've got to be careful. Even sitting that far back, that is still prime territory for a Baba Yaga to throw some of those potions, to throw some of that witch magic out there.
The witch magic.
The witch magic. Yeah, it's the magic that the witch throws, and the walls that Preds throw. You combine the two of those, and it's not a fun time.
Does that mean Thoth attacks you with knowledge, with his book knowledge?
Yes, he does hit you. He literally, well, I guess he doesn't literally hit you with the book, but he does hit you with some knowledge.
Okay, that makes sense, but it looks like waiting for ults to be coming back here. At this point, our Pay's ult is still up because it didn't actually end up pulling the trigger onto Magic Feet. And it looks like that's going to be enough to just say, hey, this push is done. You got about 16 seconds left on the Fire Giant buff. None of these Phoenixes drop, and the Xibalba Storm are able to defend the base. That's not going to be an Oni Fury, just the Primal Fury, so you don't have to worry about any more enhanced minions for some time. Most of these carries for the Xibalba Storm should be able to tick over to level 20 now before Fire Giant comes. We may see some upgraded starters, and that's going to be a huge help for this next possibly enhanced Fire Giant pull.
Yeah, I got to imagine that. Still with the few seconds left before Fire Giant does make its way back on towards the map, we'll be that much closer to Enhanced as we await for its arrival and potentially the final team fight that the Xibalba Storm can put up to keep themselves alive. Remember, still one more set to go after this one, and it's going to be down to the loser of our match that happened, what was it, like 3 hours ago at this point, and then the winner of this match for one final opportunity to advance on So there's still at minimum 2 more games to go for either of these teams. So I gotta imagine the fatigue is really starting to set in.
No, definitely. It looks like Sigil of the Old Guard and Bumba Spear will be picked up for Uzi and Magic Feet respectively. So they do have a little bit of a defense spike and a power spike. But if you're looking at the left side of your map, Spudio, his build is disgusting for this time in the game. Full Ornate Arrow, about 16 stacks. You've got Dominance, you've got so much crit. Someone has to be looking at this Jing Wei because if she's left to free cast, you're going to see some large damage numbers.
Kana takes a little bit of poke by the Storm. The Fire Giant is here. 10 more seconds until it's enhanced. Magic Feet wrapping around the left side of the fight. Sarpei hasn't arrived on the scene just yet. Still making his way in. Spirit Ball avoided out by Kana. He should be fine. And Uzi just continuing this poke out. A very cautious pull by both of these teams.
It seems like the Storm is still grouped around this little corridor. Preds found a massive wall last time, and Oceans is still sitting right in the option to get walled off. You have Phantom Shell available, but it's only going to be up once, and here we go. It's going to be like the wall was a little bit off the mark there, so Oceans had a nice silence, was able to just dispel magic and back up.
Sarpei, though, still looping around the back of the fight, sees that Joshi might just be by himself. Joshi, though, with a quick turnaround, notices Sarpei and will dash away. Fire Giant to a quarter HP. Uzi and Oceans have got to make a miracle to steal this one away, or maybe they've got to turn back and help out their team. Uzi jumps in, the Wargs get the enhanced Fire Giant, but Spudio with the Aegis is still going to go down. Magic Feet finds the first kill of the fight, up into the Powwow, will pull back 2, or at least just grabbing Preds, but it's a 1-for-1 trade out. Joshi is down, and Uzi is out. So despite the fact that Fire Giant goes to the Wargs, they lose it on maybe their most important member, and maybe we'll find a pick up onto Uzi. Quarter HP on the Nike, but Ocean CC is holding him out just a little while longer. Zen is back, but a better wall by Preds will continue to delay the backs of the Storm.
Sarpei is just pushing down left right now, trying to get that Phoenix, and Uzi's going to teleport, and he's at 1 HP.
Uzi's not going to be able to stop the Phoenix going down. Will at least delay Sarpei from going back right away, or maybe even ending that game, though.
Yeah, that would have been nice to defend that Phoenix if you are Uzi. The teleport, he was like 2 crits from death there. I don't think Sarpei realized how weak he was when he was showing up. Could have got the Phoenix and the kill, and that would have really hurt. But still, Joshi decided, you know what, I'm tired of being in the back line and getting bullied. I'm going to be the front line thought, and quite literally dashed in to finish off that kill on a Spudio. Losing Enhanced Fire Giant on your ADC, that's going to be a pretty big blow, but you also lost the last Phoenix in the process, so that's going to hurt as well. At this point, it seems like Sarpei probably is just going to split push, group S4 in the mid lane, and Magic Feet's going to try to take that 1v1 once again. With the Powwow, you've got some pretty solid poke options, but these crits are going to start really swinging from Sarpei.
It does open up the door for the Xibalba, or at least for the Niflheim Wargs, by taking that left Phoenix, gives them an opportunity to force some fights on the right, even despite the fact Spudio doesn't have that buff all around his waist.
It literally opened the door.
Quite literally, yes, to the Titan room. You are correct on that one. But now with the Wargs grouping up on right side, Spudio doesn't have that same level of backdoor shred and backdoor protection shred with the Enhanced Fire Giant buff the rest of the team has.
Yeah, so it's going to be hard to get these Phoenixes down if you're relying solely on your ADC damage, but with the tank stats that you have already, and again, this is what happens. Sarpei is going to be pushing mid, could just post up and ult over if need be, but it forces Magic Feet to say, sorry guys, I can't help you out in that right siege. I got to 1v1 this Mercury.
Nice. Look at the damage that Angry is throwing out, just all willy-nilly up against everybody. He's not going to let Zen in the fight. He's not going to let Joshi freely walk up to the fight either. Right Phoenix under siege by the Wargs, but the potion tosses out of Angry are really starting to poke out some of these tankier members. Even Uzi is starting to eat a lot of damage.
Yeah, Sarpei is just waiting for the fire minions, but Preds is not. He is going to walk in here and then immediately back up. Remember, fire minions are in left. They will start pouring in to the Titan room any moment now, and that's when I imagine Sarpei is going to start looking for mid Phoenix as well.
Joshi bouncing back and forth between these two Phoenixes, waiting to see where he is needed most. Fire minions now at the Titan room, and that's going to force Magic Feet's hand, or maybe even Sarpei, to find a Sonic Boom to this right side of the map. But the Niflheim Wargs are not pushing in so frivolously. They're waiting for these minion waves. They're waiting for the initiations, maybe even a better wall. Kana gets to the back line. Big crits go through. Oceans finding as much as he can. Magic Feet, how many can he pull with the ultimate? It's only going to be Kana back in. Preds finds some good damage with his ult, but it's not going to be enough to stop this fight. Instead, the Xibalba Storm have to back themselves out, but Uzi jumps back into his own death. It's only now 4 versus 5. The Titan down to half HP. Preds is not deterred one bit by Oceans. He will go down to the Wargs. It's Angry, credited for 1. Kana takes 1 off the map, and the Niflheim Wargs will pull this back in game number 3 to continue their run in the SMITE Masters tournament.
I mean, that was all just so annoying to deal with. Sarpei gets the left Phoenix down pretty much for free and then can simply say, we're going to sit here till fire minions come in, make you start sweating, and then I'm going to ult in from mid. Phoenix hit a massive ult. Your whole team's like pretty weak at this point, and then we just get to siege freely. Just great play by the Mercury, great positioning by the Mercury, and just knowledge of saying, hey, I can spread you guys so thin, there's no way you can siege a proper defense.
And the best news here for the Wargs is they're not out. They won their set. That's huge for them. The unfortunate, maybe bad news after is they've still got another best of 3 to go up against the Yomi Tanuki. Well, we're starting to hit some real deep hours here. I mean, that fatigue I keep bringing up is so important when you get to these long-winded days. I mean, sure, both these teams aren't playing the entirety through, but when some of these teams, namely the Tanuki, got here at like 10:15 in the morning and we're starting to approach 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, it's going to start getting tough for these guys.
Yeah, they better be out there in the lobby doing some push-ups, some sit-ups, just getting ready and get that heart flowing because it's going to be an intense game here.
A big set coming up right after. One more team to send to day number 3. Who is it going to be? We'll find out right after this.
sub. We see you.
Wargs able to win this set and send the Xibalba Storm home after a best-of-3 set. Goes the distance here at SMITE Spring Masters, powered by our friends over at Prime Gaming. And hey, if you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you have access to Prime Gaming. So I don't know what you're waiting out on. Every month you get new free games, a whole lot of extra stuff. So make sure to check out Prime Gaming and use those Prime subs here at twitch.tv/SmiteGame. Thanks again for Prime Gaming for powering us here, not only in the SPL, but for Spring Masters as well. But as I said, the Wargs able to grab game number 3, send home the Storm, and move themselves on to another best-of-3 that they have to go play right now. A lengthy 3-game set goes the distance. The Wargs have got to now go again up against the Tanuki. A long evening for them.
Yeah, and look, they've done it off the back of a King Arthur. And as soon as that was picked in, I was kind of shaking my head and saying, like, I didn't believe in that pick, but, well, proved me wrong. You know, we saw it go pretty poorly once in the first game of yesterday, and now it's going great. You know, based on, paired with this Mercury, a great kill, by the way. Right before Ozzy can get his ult off, he did have it available, but he was just low enough health. Get that ultimate and get that dash, completely CC him before he can die. And then Angry as well, having a great performance on another Baba Yaga. So.
And look, we were hoping that we would see, like, the level 5 gets hit by Mercury. You hope that you see it get a little bit more active on the map. You don't want to, and literally immediately at level 5, Sarpei finds that kill onto Ozzy. The rest of the team rallies behind it. The scaling of the Jingwei, massive 2-man sonic boom. So even outside of gank potential, you're seeing the Mercury set up fights from just way downtown. And then you're right, Kana on the King Arthur. Really puts on a show here in game number 3. There were moments from the Storm. I mean, at this point in the game, you're tied at 5 kills. But really, the objectives and the farm, all of that felt like it was trickling the way of the Niflheim Wargs. Undying on King Arthur, 4-0-6 for Kana.
Great game for him.
And Angry, another good game on the Baba Yaga. I think 2-0-6, despite a loss earlier on, and now 2-0, or maybe it was Joshi on the Baba Yaga that went 2-0-6 and Undying, and now it's 2-0-7 for Angry. It really did feel like, because you and I saw what? We saw Mercury, Jingwei, and Baba all locked in.
Yes.
We figured later on in the game, those 3 would really carry a lot of weight.
Yeah, but they were brawling all game. You know, I thought it was Storm that was going to be bringing that brawl potential, but they fought right back. You know, it was a relatively even game up until, you know, the Fire Giant era of the game, but, you know, there was a lot of action before then. It was just so much back and forth that, and not a lot of it ended up mattering. But in the end, you know, that solo pressure that they had from that King Arthur into the Nike with help from the early Mercury ganks ended up mattering a lot, because Connor finding some great picks on the back line.
Right.
He found, right before a Fire Giant, he found Zen paired up with Oceans, but he was able to pick Zen up and get him away from that peel, and they ended up killing him. And then they pulled the Fire Giant, and, you know, Connor's still looking for a kill, and they find him on the Thoth as well.
Right. And look, we're getting so much more used to seeing that now this weekend, where you get these low kill games but higher gold leads based on the few kills that we do see. And so it all comes down to this. Hex Mambo have already advanced themselves on to group number 3. The Yomi Tanuki and the Niflheim Wargs will battle it out in one more best-of-3 here today for one final spot in Group 3. We have just crested 8:20 here Eastern Time, a long day of Smite. I wonder who do you think benefits here? Niflheim Wargs coming off a long 3-game set, or the Tanuki who got, quote, rest, but have been sitting around for like 3 or 4 hours?
Yeah, I mean, look, bear a thought for both of them, right? Remember, this is the matchup that started the day. That was at 11 a.m. You know, I can't remember, we're at 8:20 now. They've been sitting around, they've been playing, you know.
I can't do that much math that quickly. That's what, 1 hour brings you to 12 plus 8.5 hours. It's like 9.5 hours since that set happened.
It's a long time to be sitting around the studio. You and I both know. So,
yes,
you know, bear a thought for them, because now it starts to get a little messy, but if they can pull it together, then they can move on to the next day.
They didn't have to sit around the studio with Mifflin, though, and that's what I had to do all day, and I will be doing for one more best-of-3 set. Yeah, production yells true, because that's usually where Miff goes between these games. One more best-of-3, one more team to advance, one more matchup, Wargs versus Tanuki, coming up next.